Here at TYT, we are now going quadruple green. What do I mean by that? If you sign up for an aspiration account, they're going to plant 10 trees for you. Boom, that's green number one. Second of all, they're fossil fuel free, so you don't put any of your money in that nonsense. Boom, that's green number two. But now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, another sweepstakes. And now you could win a Zoom e-scooter for free if you sign up at Aspiration through the end of August. It saves money on gas and parking. You can go up to 60 miles per hour. It's got a smart alarm. It's got a phone charger in there. It's got everything you need. It's actually, especially if you live in a city, it's perfect. Now you can get a free one if you go to tyt.com/greensummer and sign up for an Aspiration account. So you're wondering, Jake, what's the fourth green? Well, you're saving money on Aspiration, including on socially conscious spending, and you're saving money on the scooter. Fourth green, tyt.com/greensummer.
Our generation actually has a voice to say who we want.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the President of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
Get out there and
take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm going to vote because I want this country to be different.
I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl. Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're going to be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's fantastic. It's a story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
It's like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong.
We start a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited?
Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in, and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
Hello and welcome to Staying Home with Josh Fox, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. Today, my guest is Borough President Eric Adams of Brooklyn, my borough president. And we're going to talk to him about a very important issue to him that relates to climate change, that relates to the Green New Deal, but it isn't exactly a part of the Green New Deal. But a lot of people have been clamoring at me to do something on this subject. And the subject is veganism. We did have a talk about veganism with Ed Begley at one point. So Borough President Eric Adams is a vegan, and he talks about how his veganism has radically and drastically changed his health. And as we know, a plant-based diet is much, much better for climate change because the meat industry produces a lot of greenhouse gases, not just in terms of methane that the cows belch out, but also in terms of deforestation and all sorts of other impacts that the meat industry has on the environment. It's much better to be a vegan in terms of the environment. And if you can't do that yourself, maybe you can just do it a couple of days a week. And if you can't do it a couple of days a week, maybe then you can encourage the public, I guess the communal events that we have to be vegan events, things at the office, things at school. Hopefully nobody's going to an office and nobody's going to school anytime soon, unless we have a vaccine, but you get my point. So we're going to talk about veganism with Eric Adams. And we have as a musical guest, one of my favorite people on the planet, a guy who I've toured with all across the United States, Dustin Hammond from the band Run On Sentence. Always an amazing pleasure. So today on Staying Home with Josh Fox, this is your vegan episode. Let's do it. Here's Borough President Adams. So my president, it's great to have you on.
Thank you so much. And that's a great introduction and announcement. I need to play that over and over again, you know?
Well, I would hope I wish you were president of more than just Brooklyn, to be honest.
We all
that
do.
Would be a fantastic thing. But I met you, I think it was at an Earth Day event in Queens or Brooklyn. It was right near the border. And it was an astounding speech that you gave. You talked about how, and I want to talk about, we're going to talk about veganism today, because on this show, we talk about climate change. We talk about the Green New Deal. We talk about all things environmental. And obviously what's good for the environment is good for your personal health. But you came out with a story that in that speech that I found so moving and so remarkable, and not just that it was moving in your personal sense, but in terms of your policies as well. So let's talk about veganism. Tell the audience a bit of that speech, that thing that changed your life, and that you are such a passionate advocate for, before we get into any of the New York City politics part of the show.
Well, it's very fascinating that I have talked often, and when I talk about the health aspect of my journey, it's amazing how people identify with that, because all of us, if we were in a room and we were to look over at the crowd and just say, raise your hand if you know someone that's experiencing a chronic disease, it would shock me if not one hand would stay down. It would shock me if all the hands didn't go up, I should say. And that is how people feel, because, although, as the old Negro spiritual would say, if you take a close look at my face, you'll see my smile is out of place in the tracks of my tears. Because we go through a normal movement in life, but all of us are experiencing the trauma of a loved one that's going through a chronic disease. And that became personal for me. I saw my mom inject herself with insulin for 7 years. She was diabetic for 15 years. But it hit home one morning when I woke up and I couldn't see the alarm clock. I was losing my sight. I thought it was sleep in my eyes. And then I went to the doctor, and it started out as discomfort in my stomach, actually, that drove me to the doctor. Because men, you have to drag, you got to drag us to any medical.
It's true. It's true. I do not like to
suck it up.
It's very true.
And so by the time I got there and went for a colonoscopy, and I came from under sedation, the doctor said, Eric, you have an ulcer. That was the original discomfort. But he said the real problem was your diabetes. You have type 2 diabetes, and I'm amazed that you're not in a coma right now, because your blood sugar level is at a coma level. And that vision loss that you're experiencing is not temporarily, it's permanent. You know, you're gonna lose your sight. And I was having tingling in my hands and feet. I didn't know it was nerve damage. It was going to lead to amputation possibly. And he basically said that, you know, this is your new norm. You know, you're going to be on medicine the rest of your life. I walked into to the doctor's office, Josh, with no medicine, and I left with medicine for my vision loss, medicine for my ulcer, 3 for my diabetes, high blood pressure medicine, high cholesterol medicine. I was a miniature damn Dwayne Reed. You know?
Oh my God.
And it was just such a wake up moment for me. And I remember sitting down talking to my son about it, and he was like, you know, Dad, you drove around, as I can remember, with your BMW, putting the best gas and oil in your car, and you didn't put the best food in your body. You know, we take care of those things that are external more than we take care of the things that are internal. And it was a wake up call for me.
Right. So then what happened?
I did something scientific. I went to the computer and Googled reversing diabetes. You know, I said to myself, I said, listen, I'm not a doctor, but I'm an ex-cop. I know how to do investigations, and damn it, I know how to read. and I was not going to allow something so important to be in the hands of others. And all the pamphlets I received said living with diabetes, living with high cholesterol, living with high blood pressure. But I went to the computer and I did one word different. I said reversing instead of living. And it took me down a different path. It introduced me to a group of doctors that I like to say they're the Steve Jobs of medicine. They no longer walked within the boundaries of others, and they went and said there are different ways to do things. One of them was Dr. Esselstyn. He was Bill Clinton's heart doctor. I called him. He told me to fly down to see him at the Cleveland Clinic. And I got there and he said, listen, this is what you have to do. And you could, you could reverse your disease. And I remember saying to myself, you know, what kind of nut is this, man? I'm losing my sight and he's telling me to stop eating, steak, but I said I had nothing to lose. And I returned to the city, clean out my pantry and fridge, and went whole food, plant-based. And within 3 weeks, my vision came back.
3 weeks?
3 weeks.
That fast?
Yep. And within 3 months, my diabetes went in remission. My blood pressure normalized. My cholesterol normalized.
Wow.
I lost 35 pounds. My body just was tight. I like to say I don't have a six-pack. I have a case, man. My body is like...
So all of that happened, and what was the diet specific? It was just vegan, whole foods. That's what you're saying.
Whole food, and
so nothing processed. Also,
nothing, processed. I do some super food, some powders that are processed through a normal process. And that's interesting, processed through a normal process. But I do some of the superfoods, like a cacao powder. And carob powder and some other of the superfoods that I do in my smoothie every morning.
Right.
But it's an unbelievable journey when you make a transformation and then you just start to connect to this universal cord that connects us all, and you just view life differently when you start to go on this journey.
This is Staying Home with Josh Fox, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. My guest is Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. We're talking about diet, but we're also talking about policy. So my president, I keep referring to you as because I am a Brooklyn resident, Mr. President. In terms of policy, I remember when I went to school in New York City, in elementary school, I was in public school, and those lunches, they were bad. And every day, you wanted it to be Friday because Friday was pizza day, or it was like once every 2 weeks. And those square pizzas, and it was just like, in New York, you think you could have a regular New York kind of pizza, but they had to give you these weird square processed pizza. I swear they must have come from New Jersey. But the point is that the food in the schools is really bad for you, right? So let's talk about how things could change and how they may change and how that could work for children.
And this is an unbelievable, journey that I am on, and it really talks about. And I spend a lot of time talking about schools because we need to plant the right seeds in the beginning. Right. And school food is really destroying not only our current state but our future. And we are in a contradiction. We live a schizophrenic life in New York City and across America. One agency fights and spends millions of dollars to prevent childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, childhood asthma. Yet every day we feed our babies 960,000 meals that cause childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, childhood asthma. And we tinker around the edges. And, we were successful in getting our school system to stop serving processed meat, which is a type 1 carcinogen by the WHO. We were successful in getting them to stop selling that. But still, when you look at the food that we're serving, cheese sandwiches and other just bad food that causes the chronic diseases. And not only does it causes it, it actually instills in our children the behaviors that will impact them for a lifetime. Think about this number, which is a very powerful number. 70% of 12-year-olds have early signs of heart disease. That's our number one killer in America.
70% of 12-year-olds?
So we're saying we're putting our babies on a pathway of having heart disease, diabetes, all of these other chronic diseases. And I say no to that. And I was able to get the city to stop purchasing processed meat in New York City, a 50% reduction in beef. And we want to continue to move forward to a more healthier lifestyle.
What's in the way? What are the challenges you face? Is it parents? Is it schools? Is it contracts? Is it budget?
It's a combination, but the biggest tool is this misconception that milk, dairy, and meat does your body good. It is Madison Avenue matched with the meat industry. Many families and parents believe if you take meat off the menu, that you're denying your children protein, that you're denying them a healthy lifestyle. Many children grow up and can't wait until they get the white mustache from milk. Our psyche really, it has been bombarded with this concept that a good old American boy must have a steak. And, there's a great movie called Game Change that shows how it's just the opposite and how meat has really destroyed the lives of people. And so it's a combination of really showing parents what this food is doing to their children, really getting in front of our federal policies that really desires to supplement the meat and dairy industry at the cost of the health of our families, and really focusing on a community-based conversation around healthy food.
Let's talk about this culturally from the standpoint of New York City, right? It's the most diverse city in the entire planet, right? We have more people from more places in New York City than any place on Earth. So there've got to be some cultural barriers as well within people in different kinds of foods, right? I know as an Italian, cheese is like a mainstay of everything that we have, and I also know as a Jew that you have gefilte fish and you have all the blocks, all the things,
Right.
And I imagine with other ethnicities, there's so many other things to talk about there. Is it possible to imagine, though, as school, a place where at least one meal is like a different type of a thing? And the other thing I was asked is, could that, well, go ahead. Do you think about school as a place to do that? Or is it an office thing? What's the best places to implement this?
School. And
School.
the reason I say school is because of what you just stated. This is one of the most culturally diverse places on the planet. And many of the students, the 1.1 million students we have in public school, they are really, many are first generation New Yorkers.
Sure.
Historically, it has always been the children who have gone home and helped the families become familiar with the right practices within the household. So if we start educating children on how to eat healthy, how to grow healthy food, what not to eat, they will go home and tell their parents, we shouldn't be eating this because mommy, this causes your diabetes. Daddy, this causes your heart disease. Here are different ways to have the taste that we're looking for and the cultural norms in our food, but to do it in a healthy way. You can have tacos, bean tacos with dry beans and make your own sauce, tomato sauce, and they're just as enjoyable. Or lentil burgers. So there are ways to get that cultural taste you're looking for, but you can do it in a healthy way.
So, I mean, obviously diabetes, a huge factor, comorbidity in terms of coronavirus. And we know in New York City, the coronavirus hit the Black community hardest, hit people of color, poor people. Talk about this as a race issue.
And it's so deep and it's so powerful when you talk about it, you know, because I started this journey 3 years ago and I've been pushing the city to look at health. And this is before the term comorbidity and pre-existing condition was part of our everyday dialogue. But look at the numbers. Over 90% of the people who were hospitalized had pre-existing conditions. Over 90% of the people who died from coronavirus had pre-existing conditions. We knew coming into coronavirus that if you had pre-existing conditions, diabetes, heart disease, respiratory issues, high blood pressure, we knew beforehand that, hey, you are likely to be hospitalized or likely to die. Yet we put nothing in place to go after those communities, which are predominantly Black, brown, and poor and immigrant. We knew beforehand that they were likely to have the hardest part of this virus, yet we did nothing to prevent it. We did just the opposite. We served them food that aggravated their pre-existing condition. This was the time of saying, hey, when you buy your own food, you buy what you want, but on the taxpayer's dime, we're going to give you something to build your and strengthen your immune system so we won't be aggravating and actually creating the climate so that you can become a part of this problem. If we would have focused our food on healthy food during coronavirus, that would have been the greatest way of preventing some of the cases. Remember, it took only 3 weeks for my vision to turn around. Within a 3 weeks period, we could have stabilized blood pressures. We could have stabilized some of these diabetes issues. We could have started moving the people in the right direction. We did just the opposite. We fed the crisis with our knives and forks.
Isn't this because, I mean, there are food deserts. There's a lack of healthy food in a lot of these communities because you don't have supermarkets in some of them, right? I mean, that is a consequence of racial segregation that persists in New York City to this day. I mean, when you look at what happened in New York, it has to enrage you, and as it enraged me, to see how we didn't tax the wealthy, we didn't cancel the rent, we didn't change the food, we didn't provide people with the necessities that they needed. Where do you place? I can tell you where I place blame right now. Where do you place blame? Who are the officials that you think did not show up, did not rise to the occasion in the early part of this crisis?
Trust me when I say there's enough blame to go around on all different levels. We were caught flat-footed. Clearly, we have a level of incompetency in Washington, D.C. that defies all logic. To not get the proper resources down to the state was horrendous. And I believe that we violated some civil rights violation. Jumaane Williams and I, the public advocate, we joined with other electeds across the country, and we wrote a letter to the Department of Justice to conduct a civil rights investigation. I don't think we're going to get it under this administration, but hopefully with the changing of the presidency, someone would examine what we did. And I also think that many of our local executive branches should have done a better job in coordination and communication. We should have properly managed our assets and had an equitable distribution of resources in real time. You cannot have hospitals that had great resources to deal with their patients. And then you had hospitals in poorer communities like Elmhurst and downstate, where you saw people were dying. Your zip code determined your outcome. That is not acceptable. And
absolutely,
done a better job.
If I have to go to the emergency room, I take a taxi to the Upper East Side. I'm not joking. Watching Staying Home with Josh Fox, your Revolutionary Guide to the Green New Deal, Why We're Not Going Back. And I'm really concerned, Borough President Adams, my president, with what's going to happen next. For years, and I've spoken directly to Mayor de Blasio about this as I confronted him over the Amazon complex in Long Island City right before it was canceled. And I think that confrontation had something to do with it. But the truth is that we are seeing rampant turbo gentrification, which is fueled by racist policies, by unequal policies, by policing policies. Every single neighborhood that I grew up in, I can no longer afford to go back to. Every single place where I developed my art as a person, whether it was playing drums and CBGBs in the village when I was a kid, or the theaters, the great theaters that the Ohio Theater, all the wonderful theaters that I did my work in, all of those places are either gone or they're in deep trouble because they don't, or they have been saved by the city, like La Mama, for example. La Mama's rent is $1 a year, PS 122, saved by the city. What can we do to expand protection of our vital cultural heritage, our vital cultural institutions, and the diversity within our neighborhoods? We have landmarks for buildings. Why don't we have a certain kind of zoning in our neighborhoods that say this neighborhood cannot become bled white, as we see as happened all over the city? These cultural institutions are protected. What can we do? What kind of pressure do we need to put on on the system to change that? Because I'm worried that there's going to be utter devastation of the small businesses and mom and pop shops, all those places, because of the coronavirus and people not being able to keep up with the rent.
Listen, you just hit it out the park, because you're right. There's a real concern. There's a possibility that 40% of the small businesses, I like to say micro businesses, that were open won't be open after we go through the recovery process. And if we don't get real help on a federal level, the first stimulus that came down did not find its way to those businesses in need. We have to carve out specifically for those small mom and pop businesses the dollars that we need to come in. And then
we got some assistance from the federal government. I mean, I run a small theater company. We got some assistance to keep our doors open. But where's New York has more billionaires than any place in the country. And Cuomo refuses to accept the fact that we have to tax those billionaires. What is your position?
Yeah, and we should. I think that's particularly when you look at the bills that are in the assembly now, that's looking at taxing the extreme high end. We should do so. And to be honest with you, there are billionaires who are stating this is where the revenue must come from. Give us a tax. There are billionaires that support and understand that we're in a dire need. We have a $9 billion budget deficit in 2021. When the tax receipts come in the first quarter, we're going to find out that we're going to be even deeper in the hole. So we're at a place where we were in the 70s, but on steroids. We all have to come together. Unions, businesses, the city. That is how we survived the 70 fiscal crises. And that is what we're going to have to do now. Everyone is going to have to feel some level of pain. And I believe we need to look inward in our city in a number of areas. Number one, many of us have to go and start patronizing our small retail shops again. It's amazing how we don't even shop locally anymore. In one voice, we talk about Amazon and how much we dislike it, but we don't go into a local hardware store to buy that screwdriver. We're too busy having Amazon screw our local businesses instead of giving them the support that they deserve. So we have to be a part of this change if we want the change we're looking for.
It's extremely worrisome when you walk up and down the street and you see all these empty storefronts. And that was happening before the coronavirus.
Yes.
Right? Let's talk about policing. Let's talk about the cry from the people, weeks and weeks and weeks on end, sustained asking to abolish the police, defund the police. And all of the things that the police do that could and should, in my opinion, be handled by other types of people. Mental health crises. How is it that we still are in this conversation months and months and months after these protests began? What is needed now, in your opinion, in terms of the police, and what can protesters and people do to change the current situation, which seems to me to be completely out of control? And the New York Times is showing the police beating protesters in the streets. They're saying, "Well, we're being restrained." The video shows something else.
A combination of things we should do. And as a former police officer and even a former young man arrested at 15, beat by police, asked by civil rights leaders to go into the police department, starting 100 Blacks in law enforcement who care, 22 years of fighting for reform. I was the only law enforcement person to testify in the Floyd versus New York City case where the federal judge handed down a ruling against the police department. And so this is my space. I know it very well. I'm on familiar ground when I talk about how we need to have a right law enforcement community. It's about changing the ecosystem of public safety. And whenever I hear someone say, disband the police department or defund the police department, I always want definitions, because definitions are important. I'm not a supporter of disbanding a police department. If that's the definition of defunding, that's not what I believe. I believe we reallocate the $1.2 billion that we put in the police department in the last 4 years. And we say, how do we move to a proactive version of public safety and not a reactive version of public safety? That is the direction to go. And it's a combination of things. Like you said, we are hooked on 911. I like to say 911 is our crack. Whenever something happens in our city, the first thing we want to do is pick up the phone and call 911. We have to wean ourselves off that, and we need to start to look at what is the role of policing. Policing should be used for the most dangerous and violent actions in a society, not for everyday nuances or nuisance. We should have a civilian form of public safety to be part of that ecosystem. We need to empower the CMS team, crisis management system. They are excellent at dealing with retaliatory violence and preventing violence. If you look at the areas where they are deployed, you see a substantial decrease in violence. And then we have to get engaged. Let's be honest about this. If we don't want police on our block, then we need to organize our block on how do we communicate with each other. So I think we could decrease the manpower in the police department, which is 90% of the budget, without decreasing the patrol strength and apparatus. By civilianizing our department, we shouldn't have police officers that are telephone switchboard operators assigned to the barrier detail. All of these clerical jobs, they shouldn't be doing. We could decrease the numbers through attrition, bring down those numbers, refocus that money into some proactive things that many people don't even realize. One, for example, dyslexia. It is believed, based on a Texas study, that Rikers is the same way. 40% of the young men and women at Rikers Island are dyslexic. How about preventing them from being incarcerated in the first place by identifying the dyslexia, giving them the proper support they need in the lower grades? We won't be responding to crime later. And there's so many areas that we could focus that money to prevent crimes and not just respond to crime.
Well, but what about the most obvious way that people in our last 2 minutes that we have here are going to jail in New York City, which is that we still have not decriminalized marijuana, and we still have not vacated those sentences. I mean, we have a city right now, which is a very progressive liberal city. It's far behind places like Colorado and California, and yet we're still locking up people. 800,000 Black men stop and frisk under Bloomberg, terrorized in the streets by the police, and yet we're still locking up people for something that, white people in the suburbs do recreationally. It's disproportionately enforced. Where is the justice on decriminalization of marijuana in New York City?
Hey, pass me the joint, man. We should have done it a long time ago. I mean, this is making no sense at all. But we need to go even further than just merely decriminalization. We need to make sure that when we open up the marijuana dispensaries, that the first percentage of those who get licenses are those who had their lives destroyed by it. They should be some of the first involved. We need to seal the records. We need to make sure that a percentage of that is reparation. The marijuana sales go to training, go to employment skills for those who had their lives destroyed. So we can't say, let's start anew here. No, we have to go back and make people whole. We need to look at how much we destroyed the lives of people. If you were arrested for possession, if you were arrested for smoking a joint, if you were in some way your life was destroyed, we need to utilize the resources and the economics that come from marijuana to make people whole, not allow the same entities that created this environment now to become rich off it. We need to make sure that the people whose lives are destroyed are made whole again.
Mr. President, it's been an extraordinary time talking to you. I really appreciate all the things that you're doing. And I think, obviously we need more public officials like you. And I speak as a New Yorker who is incredibly frustrated with the current administration at the mayor level and the governor level, as I'm on the record a lot. And so I really appreciate what you're saying. And I hope that there is a way to increase those policies and those positions. And if there is, please don't hesitate to let this show know. And, we have your back.
Thank you, Josh. Good to talk to you, man. Take care.
All right, absolutely. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care. You're tuned in to Staying Home with Josh Fox, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. We'll be right back. You're tuned in to Staying Home with Josh Fox, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. That was Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. We talked about veganism and his personal story about how he reversed his diabetes, and we talked about so many other things. Incredible conversation if you're just tuning in. And there, now, my musical guest has been a musical guest with me for many, many times in many, many places around this world. Dustin Hammond. How you doing? I haven't seen you in forever. I was on tour in 2018 when we played together out there in Silver City, New Mexico, I think. Yeah. Something like that. How are you, Dusty?
I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah? What's you got back? Have you taken a piano part behind you?
Oh,
I love it.
It's, yeah, sort of. I've been playing a lot of piano.
Oh, yeah? Fantastic. Yeah. But you have the guitar, the axe, ready to rumble today?
Yeah. It's been so weird because I haven't actually performed since probably February with all this.
Yeah.
And
all the tours canceled.
Yeah.
But you are, I think of as an incredibly introspective, poetic force, not just in terms of playing out, which you're an amazing performer, but in terms of this moment. We started off this show like just talking about the Green New Deal and also talking about how artists are dealing with this moment of isolation and all the tours being canceled, my tour canceled. How has that been?
I mean, being introspective is useful when you're just staying home all the time. So, I mean, in some ways, I think I've been preparing for this year my whole life in a way because, like in order to tour and become a touring musician, I had to learn to get by on as little money as possible. And and as a writer, I've always enjoyed seclusion. And so basically I'm sitting at home, not making any money and not engaging with people, which gives me lots of time to be creative and it's just trying to stay focused like everyone.
It's really interesting that the sort of working class artist like yourself, like myself, like Don Vappy, who's always on this program, is actually kind of, there's a mixed bag, right? Because on the one hand, like I really miss performing and I really miss audiences. But on the other hand, it's also like that nagging voice that's constantly like, get on the road, go tour, pack up the car, pack up the van, whatever it is. Because I know you've done America in a van probably 800 times or whatever it is. It's an extraordinary endurance test. So a lot of people are saying, I'm actually really enjoying this, even though I'm worried about the future in terms of the financial hardship.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I got very lucky because I was supposed to go on tour in the spring. And right before March, I basically canceled the tour because I have been working on a screenplay and got some funding to stay home and write. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stay home and write all spring and I'll get funded for that. And then within like 2 weeks, it was like, oh, thank God I did that, because otherwise I'd be canceling a tour and that would have been my only source of income.
Oh, wow.
So
That's cool. So I know you've been doing this Patreon, which I'm a member of, and it's monthly, right? The songs?
Yeah.
Or sometimes even a little bit more frequently. But what are you gonna play? Are you gonna play new things? Are you gonna play old things?
I definitely want to play something kind of new, and maybe if I'm playing more than one thing, I'll play something old too.
I would love that.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to hear something new?
Yeah, I really do. So let me just back this up by saying, Dustin's band Run On Sentence has put out 3 of the most extraordinary records that I think in the rock world in the last 10 years. These records I'm addicted to. I met Dustin in a hotel lobby in Columbia, Missouri at 4:00 in the morning, where there was a group of musicians sitting around. It was 2010. 2010. And everybody was smoking and passing this whiskey back and forth. And the guy who ran this old motel that was not long for that world, that shut down 2 years ago, 2 years after, everybody was just trading songs and playing off a song. And it would go around and we'd smoke cigarettes and drink whiskey. And then Dustin sang this song about a bird. And I just looked at him and I was like, oh my God, did you write that song? And he was like, yeah, this is my band. And I went upstairs and I Googled everything they'd ever done. And then I listened to it. And then I went on tour with them because they opened for the Gaslamp Films on tour. And I got sucked into being in the band as a banjo player every once in a while. I wish I could have done it more. But anyway, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but it's just because I haven't seen Dustin once.
No, it's fine. It's nice to see you. In fact, I was thinking of that bird song. I was trying to figure out what to play. I'll be honest. I've been out touring and performing live frequently for 10 years or something. And I think today I was like, oh, I haven't been nervous in years, but I haven't played in so long. I was like, God, I don't know if I can still do it. But I thought about what I was going to play, which I don't usually do. and this song is one that I wrote last spring when I was doing a residency. And because it's also about birds, I thought maybe it'd be an appropriate follow-up to the first song I ever played for you. So.
Awesome.
Their mother traveled many miles on the winter wind, just to find the perfect perch, a place they could begin. She found a mate inside your tongue, settled in and hatched her young. But then one day she soared away and never came back home. Left these speechless creatures, little fledglings never flown. They've not yet found the tears to weep, let alone the faith to lead. Now all these words like little birds are nesting in your mouth. How long will it be before you dare to spit them out? Too young to fly, too soft to scold, too precious to be swallowed. Now these aching eyes, they strain to see something outside the silence of yourself, twisting all your whispered secrets into sacred spells. You're staring at your confidence shattered on the ground, and there inside the consequence of having looked down. You pray to the little things, you pray to the bird who sings your song, your laughter. There is no other God who can save you from yourself, not here nor ever. After all these aching eyes, they strain to see something out of sight, and all these waiting wings they long to be rhythm with the light. And oh, if you could only set them free, maybe they're just my into flight.
Man, that's amazing. That's a new one, huh?
Thanks.
I never heard that one before. You've been tuned in to Staying Home with Josh Fox, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. And this is Dustin Hammond from Run On Sentence. Go out and buy all of his records. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.
Here at TYT, we are now going quadruple green. What do I mean by that? If you sign up for an aspiration account, they're going to plant 10 trees for you. Boom, that's green number one. Second of all, they're fossil fuel free, so you don't put any of your money in that nonsense. Boom, that's green number two. But now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, another sweepstakes. And now you could win a Zoom e-scooter for free if you sign up at Aspiration through the end of August. It saves money on gas and parking. You can go up to 60 miles per hour. It's got a smart alarm. It's got a phone charger in there. It's got everything you need. It's actually, especially if you live in a city, it's perfect. Now you can get a free one if you go to tyt.com/greensummer and sign up for an aspiration account. So you're wondering, Jake, what's the fourth green? Well, you're saving money on aspiration, including on socially conscious spending, and you're saving money on the scooter. Fourth green, tyt.com/greensummer.
Our generation actually has a voice to say who we want.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the president of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
Get out there and
take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm gonna vote because I want this country to be different.
I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl. Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there you're going to be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
Like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We start a revolution. Yes, another one. Aren't you excited? Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in, and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
Here at TYT, we are now going quadruple green. What do I mean by that? If you sign up for an aspiration account, they're going to plant 10 trees for you. Boom, that's green number one. Second of all, they're fossil fuel free, so you don't put any of your money in that nonsense. Boom, that's green number two. But now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, another sweepstakes. And now you could win a Zoom e-scooter for free if you sign up at Aspiration through the end of August. It saves money on gas and parking. You can go up to 60 miles per hour. It's got a smart alarm. It's got a phone charger in there. It's got everything you need. It's actually, especially if you live in a city, it's perfect. Now you can get a free one if you go to tyt.com/greensummer and sign up for an aspiration account. So you're wondering, Jake, what's the fourth green? Well, you're saving money on aspiration, including on socially conscious spending, and you're saving money on the scooter. Fourth green, tyt.com/greensummer.
Our generation actually has a voice to say who we want.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the president of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
Get out there and
take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm gonna vote because I want this country to be different.
I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl.
Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're going to be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
It's like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We start a revolution. Yes, another one. Aren't you excited? Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in, and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
Welcome everyone once again to the conversation on TYT. I'm your sometimes host, Francesca Fiorentini. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. I'm so excited to talk to our first guest for this segment. Her name is Melba Pearson. She's an attorney, a criminal justice reform advocate, and she's running to be the next state attorney for Miami-Dade County. Welcome, Melba.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. This is a close race and it's an exciting one. And there are many reasons that you're running. But one of them, you've spoken about the mass incarceration crisis, as you call it, in the county. Can you just talk a bit about that and what its impact has been on the community?
Sure. So first off, I was deputy director of the ACLU of Florida. And during the time that I was in that office, we released a study called Unequal Treatment. And what it did was explore the data between 2010 and 2015 of all the criminal cases in Miami-Dade County. And what was revealed was that Black Miamians get almost up to 3 times worse outcomes than their white counterparts at every single stage of the system, including arrests, charging, what charges are filed, types of pleas offered, as well as the sentences that are obtained after trial. And if you're Black Hispanic, that goes up to almost 6 times worse outcomes. So these are the clear effects of mass incarceration, where incarceration is valued over diversion programs, over restorative justice, rehabilitation, and that is not the pathway to safer communities. We know this from decades of studies.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, I know you say you're running on a platform that includes restorative justice. What does that mean to you briefly? I know a lot of people are hearing it for the first time. What does that mean?
Restorative justice is a concept that's been around forever, right? Basically, the indigenous tribes, the native peoples, that is something that is a key part of their justice system. When you look at, African tribes, this is something that's part of their system. It's about really connecting the person that committed a crime with the victim, with the survivor, and really making sure that the offender understands the harm that they did. The purpose of it is to keep the community harmonious, because if you think about a small village, somebody steals, property from someone else. In a small village, you can't, you got to all still live together, right? So I think that there's something to be said about really facing the person and understanding the harm you've caused so that you're less likely to do it in the future. This doesn't apply to all cases, obviously, but I think there's certain charges that are very amenable to that sort of justice.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And right now, the effect of mass incarceration on communities is the opposite, and as you're explaining, predominantly Black and brown communities, and specifically Black Latino communities. I guess I just wanted to ask you about your opponent, right? Catherine Fernandez Rundle has been state's attorney for something like 26 years. Is that
27 years?
Is that possible? That's a very long time. Just tell me about her and tell me about the justice system under her watch.
Certainly. So my opponent, who I actually used to work for in the past, has been in office for 27 years. She was appointed when Janet Reno was appointed by President Bill Clinton to be his attorney general.
Oh, wow.
So that's just to give you a kind of context of how long this has been. And so under her watch, in her 27 years, she has never once filed charges against a police officer for an on-duty killing. Not one. And to give you some context, between 2016 and 2019, there were 73 police-involved shootings, fatal and non-fatal. So, I mean, if you multiply that by the 27 years, you already know that there's a clear lack of political will when it comes to holding bad actors in the criminal justice system accountable. I can point to the case of Darren Rainey, who was a man who was in custody here at a prison in Miami-Dade County, who was literally boiled to death by 4 correctional officers in a scalding hot shower that ranged in temperature from 160 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. They left him in that shower for 2 hours as he screamed and begged for his life. And my opponent did not see fit to file charges against the 4 officers. There was another police officer, Jesus Menical, who was sexually assaulting women and underage girls. And when they came forward, they were disbelieved by the state attorney's office. They didn't even do the due diligence to speak to all 5 of the survivors, only speaking to one and never bringing justice to these survivors. It took the feds to get involved for there to be any modicum of justice to start to move forward for these folks. And I can go on and on. There's a number of very high profile problematic cases that show that my opponent is out of touch and that, her time has passed, and it's time to pass the baton to the next generation to make sure that justice is real and accessible for everyone in this county.
And as I mentioned earlier, it's a tight race, and it looks like your message is resonating with people. You have big endorsements: the Democratic Hispanic Caucus of Florida, Democratic Haitian American Caucus of Florida, Florida LGBTQ plus Democratic Caucus. So what has been the response to your campaign?
So we have been gaining so much momentum that it's literally like, it's like a runaway freight train. Like, you can't stop us, right? I mean, and it's been amazing because you think about, I announced my candidacy on January 15th of this year. And you think of all the things that have occurred in the last 8 months: a global pandemic, and the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. And so much has really come to light that people are really realizing the power of elected prosecutor. And especially what's so key about this race is that mine is the largest prosecutor's office in the state of Florida and the 4th largest in the country. So think about the national effects if we're able to get someone like me who is unapologetically progressive and wants to center the experiences of marginalized peoples and make sure that justice is real and accessible for everyone. Imagine the work that we can do, and imagine the policy changes we could see on a national level with this kind of concerted effort amongst other like-minded prosecutors in the country. We can really change the face of this country and how criminal justice is being administered.
With ACLU, you successfully helped pass the Voting Restoration Amendment 2018. It was put to the voters. 64%, I believe, of them voted to restore voting rights for former felons, which would apply to nearly 1 million people in Florida. Now the Supreme Court is upholding a DeSantis ruling that says, yes, these felons can vote, former felons can vote, but they have to pay fees and fines and restitution. What does this mean? What's the state of voting rights in Florida for former felons right now? What are those barriers significant?
Yes, those barriers are significant. So when we look at the complete total, I want to say it's like 1.6 or 1.7 million people with felony convictions were affected by this passage of Amendment 4, which was, so much hard work, and everyone was really excited. And so many people started to register in January of 2019 when the law came into effect. But unfortunately, the Florida legislature somehow thought that the Florida voters didn't understand what they were voting for, which is very disrespectful, honestly. When 65% of the voters, listened to the arguments, read all the information that was out there. I mean, this was a year-long campaign for it to be on the ballot in November. So again, people really understood what they were voting for, but they added these additional roadblocks. So where it stands right now, if you have no outstanding fines, fees, and restitution, you're able to register to vote and vote. If you have outstanding fines, fees, and restitution, you are not able to register at this point. Unfortunately, the trial judge had sided in our favor, saying that this type of scheme was a poll tax and basically excluding people based on finances from being able to vote, which is not okay. The judge had really come up with a great format, basically putting the burden on the state to say, listen, you have to tell people how much they owe. You can't have people calling every different clerk's office trying to figure out what their balance is because it's a case that's 10 years old or whatever the case may be. But unfortunately, the appeals court saw it differently. So we're we still have another ways to go. The appeal court has not made their final ruling, so we will see what happens. We're still hopeful, but this has been a blow to voting rights in Florida.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. I mean, if Your work in the past is any sign. I think it bodes very, very well for August 18th, which is when this runoff election and effectively the election for state's attorney in Miami-Dade County. Thank you so much, Melba Pearson. Best of luck to you, and thank you for schooling us on all this.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be on. Take good care.
Here at TYT, we are now going quadruple green. What do I mean by that? If you sign up for an aspiration account, they're gonna plant 10 trees for you. Boom, that's green number one. Second of all, they're fossil fuel free, so you don't put any of your money in that nonsense. Boom, that's green number two. But now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, another sweepstakes. And now you could win a Zoom e-scooter for free if you sign up at Aspiration through the end of August. It saves money on gas and parking. You can go up to 60 miles per hour. It's got a smart alarm. It's got a phone charger in there. It's got everything you need. It's actually, especially if you live in a city, it's perfect. Now you can get a free one if you go to tyt.com/greensummer and sign up for an aspiration account. So you're wondering, Jake, what's the fourth green? Well, you're saving money on aspiration, including on socially conscious spending, and you're saving money on the scooter. Fourth green, tyt.com/greensummer.
Our generation actually has a voice to say who we want.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the president of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
Get out there and
take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm gonna vote because I want this country to be different.
I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl.
Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
It's like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We start a revolution. Yes, another one. Aren't you excited? Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in, and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
Welcome back to the conversation. My next guest is a reporter with The Guardian. She worked on the series called Guns and Lies in America and has done some recent reporting on how coronavirus has impacted the incarcerated community in California. Please welcome Abene Clayton. You have written this article about COVID and its spread in prisons in California. So you write that 8,000 California inmates have tested positive for coronavirus. 49 have died. Can you just explain beyond the numbers what the situation is like?
So from conversations that I've had with people who are currently incarcerated, folks who have gotten out early through these COVID population density relief efforts, as well as advocates, it's really, bungled is probably not even the best word to use here, but it's just really confusing, lots of moving pieces. This is of course, unprecedented situation, but from what I've heard, people's rehabilitation, the programs that they were a part of have completely stopped. The people are on lockdown. Earlier in my reporting, I was hearing from folks who were scared to even reveal that they were having coronavirus symptoms because they knew that they would be moved. And some people had cellmates who tested positive while they were negative, and they were just kept together because there simply was no space for the first month and a half, 2 months of coronavirus entering the institutions where it's concentrated. And they built a tent city in San Quentin to try to help that situation and people, but it hasn't done much in terms of the emotional toll and not being able to talk to your friends and stay in touch with loved ones. And I even talked to some families who just couldn't get in contact and couldn't get any medical information, and were finding out really piecemeal through contraband cell phones and things of that nature. It's just been a really, really difficult situation for all the stakeholders, of course, most difficult for the folks who are incarcerated throughout California.
Absolutely. I mean, it's incredibly scary. And so how was it to get the information? Like if family members are having a hard time getting proper information about their loved ones, what about yourself? Do you feel like there's been a damage control sort of PR machine that's at work here to try and conceal some of what's going on in terms of coronavirus's spread in the prison system?
I definitely think the spin machine is running. There's no way really for the CDCR to not look quite shabby in this situation. I have been relatively fortunate in having good relationships with different local advocates and formerly incarcerated people. I volunteered at San Quentin when I was in grad school doing the newspaper. So there were just different connections that I was able to foster as a reporter. And people trusted me to share, my contact with the folks who are inside. And honestly, just posting occasionally to Facebook or just saying, does anyone have a family member? And I got loads of really, really scared mothers and wives who reached out just to be heard. So in terms of reaching stakeholders out here who are in the free world, it's been exceptionally amazing just to see how many people are so willing to talk to reporters. When it comes to reaching out to prison officials, of course, the story is quite different. There's a main spokeswoman who the bare basics of information she will give, most things end up being confidential and or will be directed back to the website. So there's not a lot of content there. I've mostly been relying on memos and things of that nature to try to piece things together. But if there's something that needs to be confirmed and I need to reach out to the CDCR for confirmation and things of that nature, I do it as a part of my due diligence. But it's hard to get really straight answers that address the concerns that I hear. So it's been mostly.
Right. Yeah, you also write that not only family members are concerned, inmates are concerned because they can't socially distance from one another, but there are shortages of basic things like soap and other cleaning supplies. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when I was hearing from people, especially those who are in these more congregate dormitory style settings, there was just a real struggle to get good soap. They had to do the whole dilute it with water to make it stretch, getting one mask to try to make it last for a few days. And people weren't having access to showers, but maybe 3 times a week, making their own sort of Lysol, because certain things just count as contraband. You can't have in prison, you can't have the same kind of hand sanitizer and Windex and the things we rely on out here. It's illegal in there, and there are shortages among people who are incarcerated as well as the staff, which we heard about during a really illuminating Senate hearing about a month ago.
Right, because when outbreaks happen in prisons, it's not just obviously within the walls of prisons, but outside, right? So like, what is the impact on communities when there's been an outbreak in San Quentin, for example?
Yeah, so San Quentin is a bit of a kind of different situation if you look at the whole scope of the CDCR. It's in a very, it is of course a prison, so it's not going to be the Shangri-La or anything, but it is in a very resource-rich area. You're in the San Francisco Bay Area. You have the prison itself has kind of become a beacon of rehabilitation. A lot of people are looking at it. Doctors, medical professionals. It's in right across the bridge from UCSF Medical Center and all of these amazing research institutions. But if you look at a place like Avenal and some of the other prisons that are in the more rural parts of California, where hospital resources are already slim and these prisons are a primary employer, that's where you really start to see just how dangerous a coronavirus outbreak can be for such a small town. And you really realize how it's illuminating issues in healthcare and shortages that existed long before coronavirus came onto the scene. And I think that's really where a lot of the danger is to the surrounding communities in those rural places that are already struggling along.
Right, places that had health deserts, if you will, doctor shortages already. Now that the coronavirus is arguably coming back home because of people who work in those prisons, they're grappling now with that health crisis. It's not contained. I mean, it's a pretty morbid reminder of just how many people are incarcerated, right? But now you realize you can't just lock away your problems. Hey, what do you know? Maybe prisons aren't the solution.
Think of safety. It really it puts it in a different frame. Like, what does actually keep us safe? Is it locking away people and having institutions that are over 120% filled, or is it finding alternatives that can heal, restore, et cetera, et cetera? And those investments have been a long time coming, and I don't know if this current situation will show just how high the stakes are. Because, like you mentioned, there are people who are coming home who work in prisons, and that's how it got in there in the first place. And now they're bringing it to their families, and it's a really unfortunate situation in the state.
What has been the governor's response? And I know there is a promise to decarcerate or depopulate some of the prisons, as you mentioned, that are already over capacity, right? They're completely overcrowded. What's the state now? Like, what moment are we in? And do you think that this gets better?
Well, I will say that for the first couple months of reporting on coronavirus, Newsom has these, they're called like Newsoms at noons. I don't know if that's the official name, but that's what we kind of call them in the newsroom, Newsom at noon. And he was surprisingly, for a lot of stakeholders, quiet about the outbreak, even as it grew and even as the reporting was showing, okay, cases are going up exponentially, you know what I'm saying, to the third and fourth power here. He was quiet until about maybe a month or so ago when some reporters pressed him on it. And you're right, there have been some efforts to decarcerate. They announced 3 new initiatives. One is a credit earning initiative, and then there are some early reviews of cases for folks who would be out within, maybe 6 months to a year. And that's said to have an effect on anywhere from like 8,000 to 17,000 people.
Oh,
but
wow.
In terms of does it get better, I'm not sure, just because of the, from what I have seen, the violent, non-violent offender dichotomy. It's just politically unpalatable to say we're gonna release lifers regardless of whether or not they're 70 and have been behind bars since they were 19. And that is really where a lot of people want to focus efforts, not necessarily on the younger people who are about to be out anyway, but more so on those folks who may have a very serious felony that they're serving time for, but are the most vulnerable to get and die from coronavirus. I don't know if he's ready to make that move. So yeah.
Right. That's a really, really important point. Absolutely, that it's the more at-risk populations who might, be serving longer sentences for more serious crimes, which is a different conversation. Meanwhile, Roger Stone apparently can't serve any time for his crimes because he is elderly. He's 60 something? The same age as probably many of the people who are currently incarcerated and are suffering from coronavirus. Anyway, Abene Clayton, journalist with The Guardian, thank you so much for this reporting and for the interview. Make sure to check out her work and stay safe.
Thank you so much. Same to you. Thank you for having me. This was great.
What we're talking about is the inevitability of infection. If you're an elderly Hispanic person, you should not go back to work under these conditions. But if you are a young, healthy 25-year-old Hispanic man, you should probably be thinking about going back to work, especially if you're not living with somebody who is 60 or over.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Jake Ugranik is sparing with you guys. I am in fact back. I went to Yosemite, and I did some Yoseminites. We'll talk a little bit about it in the post game. We'll talk a little bit about it, or maybe a lot about it in the next episode of Old School. Anna, how you been?
I'm good. Good. Actually, no, it's been terrible. Everything's been pretty awful, but I'm hanging in there. Just keeping it real.
Sounds about right. I got good news. I got bad news. The bad news, again, we'll touch on all these as quickly as we can, in both in the post game and probably in the next episode of Old School. I had people come in to fix my internet here today. Man, whatever little hair I have left on this European soccer star head of mine, I nearly pulled out. Any experience with like cable guys, internet guys these days is just so frustrating. But good news is a lot. So as we were leaving the Yoseminites, my nephew showed me a video from TikTok that brought back an old lyric that Mystical spat out at one point. And it was, if you see me fighting a grizzly bear in the forest, help the bear, the bitch gonna need it. Okay.
It's a good one. I like that.
Yes, and I was like, that should be my theme song. So now, speaking of that, first of all, the rebellion arrives later this week. What is that? You'll see. It'll be fun. Oh, speaking of later this week, on Tuesday, the future arrives. We're going to have a discussion about the future. Andrew Yang's going to join us. Dolores Huerta is going to join us. Derek Johnson, Nobi Prince, Nicholas Thompson, Tiwa Chang, Tamara Tolos O'Laughlin, Dr. Jutani. What does the future look like? We're going to figure it out. That's tomorrow night right here at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That's a great special we have for you guys. Don't miss that. I'll be heading that up. Okay, and so now, having said all that, let me get to our first story, which is a lot about us. And then we've got a great show for you guys with a ton of devastating stories, as usual these days. Okay, so recently we applied to get press passes to the RNC and DNC, as we do every 4 years. The Young Turks has been going since 2004. Some of our most interesting interviews, including with Grover Norquist and Joe Crowley before he was defeated, and I can go on, have happened at these conventions. The DNC this time around denied us a press pass. Now, on the one hand, if we're keeping it real, I get it, right? It's coronavirus days and the numbers are limited, so they want to limit the press. And if you only heard that excuse, you'd think, well, obviously they're going to give it to the CNNs of the world, and that's it. No, actually, they pass it off to the Congressional Press Gallery, and they're saying, I got nothing to do with it, man. It's just people who are approved for that. But wait a minute, the people who are approved for that, number one, are a range of folks, including very, very conservative news outlets, Fox News, obviously, but also folks like the Daily Caller, started by Tucker Carlson. So now, do you think the RNC is just going to say, hey, you know what? Why don't we let a bunch of progressive outlets cover this, but not right-wing outlets? Now, the RNC would never do that, right? But the DNC is like, sure, yeah. Tucker Carlson, both your old website and your current show, everybody come, right-wingers, come. But the largest progressive news outlet, no thank you. So I'm going to give you context on that in a second. But first, I was heartened by the reaction online, which is not a sentence often spoken. But Brent Welder, who's a former Just Democratic candidate and who was a really important part of the Rules Committee, was fantastic in fighting back on this, Nomiki Konst, and so many others chimed in here. But Brent had these tweets. He said, how phenomenally stupid of the Joe Biden campaign and the DNC to deny convention press credentials to the Young Turks. So stupid. And he followed up by saying, but I'm sure Fox News will get all the passes it wants. And of course, that is true. And they will get those passes. So now you say, look, I don't know if we can let every progressive Tom, Dick, and Harry in. First of all, the Republicans bring in people like Diamond and Silk, who have 3 followers and are totally made up. And so they will let anyone in. They'll let lunatic people in. Now, on our side, we have very established progressive news outlets. And the DNC is like, what are those? I don't know. Well, I wouldn't know a progressive if it hit me across the face. By the way, it did. Cory Bush hit you across the face earlier, about a week ago. Okay, so you're going to get to know us real soon. Jamal Bowman and many others. Anyways, but we're not every Tom and Dick and Harry. Now, look, there's a lot of different metrics. There's television, there's your own websites, etc. But a giant metric is how you do on social media. And that's the future, that's the present, etc. So I want to show you something that you might not see all the time. And no one in Washington has apparently ever heard of digital media. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's the year 2020. So how do we stack up against the big boys? I mean, are we like a fringe little outlet? And, I don't know, maybe in a couple of years you guys will get a press pass. Or no, let me show you the rankings. Hey, look at that. TYT with 552 million views. Now, wait a minute. Is that our count? No, that's tubular rankings. Is that over the last year? No, that's just June. That's 500 million views. But how do we do against the other guys? Fox News, not bad. Almost kept up with TYT. 507 million views. CNN, 416 million views. MSNBC, so sad. 228 million views, not even half of the views of TYT. Could you imagine if the DNC said, no, we're not letting small little outlets like MSNBC in? Now, no, of course not. They're filled to the rim with ex-Republicans and very conservative Democrats. So they're like, MSNBC, come on in, red carpet. Young Turks, oh, you're larger than all of them online. Nope, I don't know what you're talking about. Nope. So for God's sake, man, get some sense. If you're trying to reach out to progressives, I literally cannot imagine a worse way of doing this. And the reality is, of course, they're not reaching out to progressives. And the establishment Democrats, including the people who control the party, still either have disdain or loathing for all of us. And this is one of the many ways that they show it. Look, we were going to do a petition to get you guys to demand that we levy, but there's only a week left. It's next week, so it's too late. And they're down to basically a virtual convention at this point anyway. But it is the principle of the matter, guys, and how they treat progressives both politically and in media. It shows you their disdain for all of us, and it's unbearable. But like I said, look, I'm overall incredibly encouraged because whether they like us or not, we're here. So if you thought Squad 1.0 was good, wait till you get a load of Cory Bush and Jamal Bowman, let alone Marie Newman, let alone Mondale Jones, let alone so many other progressives coming to Congress. So DNC might not like it, but we're coming for them one way or another. All right, Anna.
All right, let's get to the news. So, as we all know, Congress has failed to come up with the latest version of financial relief for Americans during the pandemic. So over the weekend, Donald Trump signed an executive order. And yes, there are some questions about the constitutionality of this executive order. But nonetheless, he has, in his mind, provided a stimulus for Americans because Congress has failed to do so. Now, Democrats have already made it clear that they're not likely to challenge this in the courts. But here's what we know about the executive order so far. So if you look at it closely, you look at the reading, you'll see that it actually does not provide the economic relief that the vast majority of Americans need. But Trump described the memorandum as an action providing an additional or extra $400 a week and expanded benefits. But under Trump's measure, the federal government is requiring states to pick up the tab for $100 of the $400 additional benefit each person may be able to receive. On top of that, a state must agree to enter into this financial agreement with the federal government for any unemployed person living there to get any of the additional benefits. So it appears that he's going to make it increasingly difficult for people to actually qualify for this federal aid. But more importantly, Trump is saying that it's going to be $400 only if the state picks up $100 of that $400. Now, here's the issue. Many states right now are struggling financially. The previous stimulus bill did not offer any type of financial relief to the states. Republicans actually fought against that aggressively and successfully. And so without the proper funding for states, this economic relief is definitely going to run into quite a bit of trouble. So states have asked Congress, by the way, to provide them with an additional $500 billion to help shore up their budgets, which have been crushed by the loss of tax revenue amid the pandemic. Because as you guys know, tens of millions of Americans have been unemployed and continue to be unemployed. There's also no moratorium on evictions. Even though Donald Trump is verbally saying that there is, in reality, there is not. The way that this executive order is written makes it clear that states should look at the situation and decide whether or not it makes sense to extend the moratorium in their state. On the conviction moratorium, the new measure only states that the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Director of the CDC shall consider whether any measures temporarily halting residential evictions of any tenants for failure to pay rent are reasonably necessary to prevent further spread of COVID-19. Now, Cenk, we know the details because it's our job. It's our job to read the details, to understand the details. And so we know that this type of executive order is not actually going to do what we desperately need it to do, which is provide economic relief to average Americans, make sure that states have the funding that they need, make sure that people are protected from getting evicted. But if you read the headlines over the weekend, nothing in those headlines indicates that Donald Trump is not going to follow through on what he's promising, right? The headlines make it appear as though Congress failed, and look at Donald Trump, how courageous. He signed an executive order to provide financial relief to Americans. And I think that, honestly, it's a political winner for him, unless he really does fail to follow through on at least some of this and provide some unemployment relief to Americans.
So, look, even when I read the headlines, I thought, oh, well, let's take a look. I mean, that's pretty cool that he's thinking about evictions and he's thinking about student debt. And on the student debt, that one's a little bit more real. So we always give credit where credit is due. But when you look at the details, it's actually even a little bit worse than Anna just explained. Let me give you a quote from Donald Trump on the issue of unemployment. When Donald Trump was asked about it over the weekend, he said, we have a system where we can do 100% or we can do 75%. They pay 25%. And it will depend on the state, he said. And they will make an application. We will look at it and we'll make a decision. So what does that mean? That means if you are an ass kisser and you come from a red state, I'll give it to you. But if you come from a blue state, I'm going to punish you and I'm not going to give it to you. So that's what he's done historically. That's what he's basically threatening to do here. In other words, it's politics on top of politics, and it has nothing to do with helping the American people. It has everything to do with helping his political career. He gets big headlines saying, I'm here to help you on unemployment. Then he turns around and says, unless you come from what he considers to be a liberal or progressive state, in which case, no, we're not going to help you. And by the way, in the red states, it might all be theatrics anyway, as Anna explained. Speaking of theatrics, when you go to evictions, it's nothing but theatrics. So right. he directed the Secretary of Health and Human Services and Director of the CDC to consider whether any measures should be taken. And then you got to go through an application. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's one big giant lie, as usual, from Donald Trump.
Right, absolutely. And also, look, just quickly going back to Trump playing favoritism with states in regard to the unemployment funds. Remember, he is suffering significantly right now in the polls. And so if there's a swing state that he can provide maybe some more economic relief to, I really think that that's part of the political motivation behind what he's doing here with the executive order. I also want to just quickly talk about the payroll tax cut, because it has been presented by Donald Trump and his lackeys as a true payroll tax cut. Now, if you're unemployed, this doesn't matter. This doesn't apply to you anyway. But if you are unemployed, understand that the payroll tax cut is not actually a payroll tax cut. So the payroll tax measure does not actually reduce the payroll taxes. It defers the due date for the portion of those taxes paid by employees, 6.2% for Social Security and 1.45% for Medicare through December 31st. It applies to workers whose wages are less than about $104,000 a year. Payroll taxes would just have been delayed to the end of the deferment period. Companies may not want to stop withholding their employees' share of the taxes from their paychecks for that reason. And that's actually very good advice, because as soon as that payroll tax or deferment period ends, then workers are going to have to pay quite a bit more in their taxes because those taxes were deferred. I mean, it's terrible. It's ridiculous. It's definitely a political move by Donald Trump. And luckily, some reporters did ask him some tough questions. So, Cenk, I want to go to this next video because it shows how he couldn't really handle the heat and abruptly ended an interview or a press conference after getting a bunch of specific questions about this executive order.
This is expected to be tied up in the court, so this relief is either going to be delayed or blocked.
I don't think so. I think this is going to go very rapidly through the courts. This will go very. If we get sued, maybe we won't get sued. If we get sued, it's somebody that doesn't want people to get money, okay? And that's not going to be a very popular thing.
Go around Congress. Are you trying to set a new precedent that the president can go around Congress and decide how money is collected?
You ever hear the word obstruction? They've obstructed. Congress has obstructed. The Democrats have obstructed people from getting desperately needed money. Go ahead, please, right here.
President, why do you keep saying that you passed Veterans' Choice? Veterans' Choice. It was passed in 2014.
Okay, excuse me. Go ahead, please.
But it was a false statement, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
And just to be clear, the people clapping are not reporters. There were apparently individuals who actually pay a lot of money to attend his press briefings once every 6 months. So those were his actual supporters and fans.
Yeah, look, if you watch the Axios interview of him, I mean, he's a clown in every way, shape, and form. But I can't believe he has anybody who still follows him. And they pay to follow him. They're just the saddest people in America. Now, to the question that she asked, she said, well, why keep saying that you passed this thing that actually passed in 2014? That's when he walked out. Because he's a liar. He's a pathological liar. He takes credit for things that are not remotely true. He keeps saying that he's the best president for African Americans since Lincoln. Sometimes he says he's better than Lincoln. I mean, Axios challenged him on, wait, you're better than Lyndon Johnson? He passed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. He's like, I don't know. People have questions about it. Nobody has questions about the Civil Rights Act. So he can't answer a real question. He's a buffoon of extraordinary proportions. Now, when it comes to the payroll tax, why just defer it to the end of the year? How much does that really help? Oh, November 3rd is before the end of the year. So I'll make it seem like I'm helping you until the election, and then bammo, after the election, I'll hit you with the whole bill. And that's how this game is played. And in terms of the executive order overall, look, this is not how the American government's supposed to work. So Bush started this nonsense. Obama continued it, called out both of them when they were presidents. And now Trump is taking it to an absurd extreme. I'm not going to negotiate with Congress. I'm just going to do nonsensical things, most of which I can't execute. It's all political theater. But even if I could execute some of it, who cares? Congress has to pass the law. Of course, Congress has to pass a law about the payroll tax. Of course they do, right? He's like, I don't care. I don't care. I want to be king. And if you make this incredibly stupid mistake of reelecting me, I will be. He constantly trolls and puts out videos of how he's going to be president for the next 100 years. Like, haha, I don't care about democracy. I never cared about Congress passing the bills, and I probably won't leave if you reelect me. And maybe even if you don't reelect me. So that's where we are today.
When we come back from the break, I think one of the best pieces of video that's come out of all of this is Larry Kudlow, Donald Trump's chief economic advisor, not knowing any of the details of this executive order. We have those videos and more when we return.
Many of you already know that the TYT Army has been officially organizing for the past year. They're making decisions on which candidates and elected officials to help and always coming up with ways to inform people about progressive policies. Now, we want to give a huge shout out to some special volunteers and highlight accomplishments of our TYT Army. In Michigan, State Leader Tara West and Captain Justine Robinson organized the team's first Beer and Politics. How fun does that sound? Look, they thought of this idea at one of their monthly meetups in order to help connect TYT supporters and grow their team's volunteers. Here's what Tara had to say. Our first Beer and Politics event in Grand Rapids was a success. We had 5 new people show up who are enthusiastic about TYT. They all found out about our event through our text bank, and they liked the laid-back nature of our get-together. Looking forward to connecting with them next month and hopefully meeting a few more. Thank you, Tara and Justine, for leading the way in Michigan. To learn more about the TYT Army and how you can help from home or even start your own team, head to tyt.com/army. Check your spam folder for lost emails to stay up to date with our events.
You want to know how you could save money and save the planet? Hello, I got an awesome option for you guys. Aspiration.com/TYT. You plant not 1, not 5, 10 trees when you sign up. You know what trees do? Not a big deal, but one large tree can provide a day's supply of oxygen for up to 4 people. That's 40 people's oxygen just by signing up at aspiration.com/TYT. Sign up for a free spend and save account right now at aspiration.com/TYT.
I'm Mike Shekels, and I'm the Director of Technical Operations, so if you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it. This here is Johnny Greenwald.
I'm Manager of Post-Production Technology. Simplest terms is I deliver the content.
And this is our master control room. We have many, many more destinations than ever before, and we created this room to consolidate it, to make sure that everything's going out is up to standard, so we meet all of our contractual agreements.
Like all small businesses, we're struggling through this pandemic right now. We are doing a drive to keep TYT healthy. We want to be able to keep doing it, and it's been a Herculean task.
Ready for transport.
We're trying to raise $2 million overall, $200,000 a month if we can. If you can, and only if you can, tyt.com/go. Seriously, because we can't sustain this show without you. So thank you for making all this possible.
Where else can I feel as free as I do here to do what I do? And I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it weren't for all the people who have really carried us throughout the years.
You're our ultimate boss. We report to you guys, and if you don't like what we're doing on air or we're not telling the truth, boom, you fire us.
We're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks.
Keep TYT alive, healthy, wonderful, awesome, independent, progressive, keep it all those things. In fact, we have a new theme, Press On. Get it? It's a double meaning. tyt.com/go. I know what you're thinking. Cenk, where do I get unlimited, commission-free stock and ETF trades? Man, do I have good news for you. Doe.com/TYT. Yes, it's really unlimited trading. Yes, it's totally commission-free. Yes, they explain what an ETF is if you don't know it. But that's what's great about Doe, because they have wonderful explainer videos, and you got 0 minimum balance. You got nothing for commissions. Doe.com/TYT.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. You guys know that you could win a free electric scooter, right? Because that's our two awesome sponsors, Aspiration and Zoom Electric. They're making it possible. You got to go to tyt.com/green summer for your chance to win. Only new account signups qualify, but if you already have an account, you can still refer friends for your chance to win. So it's pretty cool. Try to check it out at tyt.com/green summer. Okay. Now I want to read some of your comments. Let's start with our members as usual. Mr. Lundberg says, welcome back, Cenk. That means fewer of Anna's awesome guest hosts, but it's good to see you anyways. A little wink emoji. But I love that. I love our guest hosts. So I'm glad you guys got a chance to spend some time with them. And we're going to give you hopefully more and more chance to see them. Don't Sheep the Issue says, hey, TYT, I had a stressful day of prepping for the new school year as an elementary school employee. So I decided to enjoy some edibles in my new press-on shirt and keep my sanity by pressing on and try to stay safe. God bless, brother. Okay, so the press-on shirt you get, of course, if you gave $127 or more to tyt.com/go. In fact, I haven't seen that thermometer in a while, and it is a new month for me. So let's check it out and see how we're doing there. $46,024. So you guys are awesome. Let's keep it going. Let's press on, edibles or otherwise. Okay. By the way, do not give impaired. Okay. Make sure you're doing rational things for your family first, and then if you can, for good causes. So tyt.com/go. Okay. Gabby Marita says the DNC treats progressives the same way that Trump treats COVID-19. They think that if they just ignore something, it'll go away on its own. That's literally the opposite of how it works. As usual, a great comment from Gabby. And then finally, I want to give some shout outs to folks on Twitch. Obi-Mom Kenobi, as usual, absolutely killing it. Gifted 11 subs to viewers. So go grab those if you're watching on Twitch. That's her 365th gift of subs to our channel on Twitch. Much love. I know, right? Null Unit 40 resub for their second month after tier 3, which is awesome. Ancient Wisdom 22 resub for their second month and gifted a sub to Francesca Fiorentino, which is awesome. Ironman 42 just donated 1,000 bits. So you guys are all wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching on Twitch. And I got a great Between Me and You coming up on Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern with Maz Jobrani. So check that out. It's going to be super fun. My kids are big fans because he's in Descendants. So we'll talk about that too. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. Donald Trump passed a stimulus through executive order. And we talked about earlier, the executive order doesn't actually provide the economic relief that Americans desperately need in the middle of this pandemic. But one of the people who doesn't seem to know much about Donald Trump's own executive order is his own chief economic advisor, Larry Kudlow. Let's take a look.
For $100 add-on, we will put on $300.
What makes you think that states have that $100 a week per person who is unemployed in their state to even put into this potential pot of money?
Well, I think they'll be able to make room. Our estimates from the Treasury Department in terms of the CARES Act 1 was that the states have not spent all the money that was allocated to them. Based on our estimates, the states will be able to provide the extra $100, and that will gross up the whole benefit to something on average of about $800.
Have you checked with the states? How many of the 50 states and D.C. and other territories say that they are going to be able to pony up $100 a week per unemployed citizen?
Yeah, good question. We'll probably find that out, today and tomorrow as we make our canvas. We've been in touch with them. We have very good records coming out of the Treasury Department, but we will be in touch with them.
So you don't know. So you don't know yet. The president didn't know the answer to that before he made his announcement.
Well, look, at the moment, we know the money.
The CARES Act provided no money to the states, none. Just wanted to make that clarification since Larry Kudlow made it seem as though that stimulus bill provided relief to the states. It did not. And Larry Kudlow not only lied, he obviously has no idea what's going on with this executive order. Cenk, we have one more video, but I want to hear your thoughts before we go to it.
Yeah. So Donald Trump did something while completely unprepared without doing any homework. No. Say it ain't so, Larry. Of course, Donald Trump has no idea which states can afford it and can't, and he doesn't care. Like we talked about earlier in the show, he's either just going to give it to the red states, and that's why he says, well, look, some states will give 100% to. If you're good boys and your governors kiss my ass, and some states we won't, and I didn't bother checking on which ones can afford it or not. And as Anna pointed out, he might just give it to the swing states to try to win re-election. I mean, he's just so crass and obvious.
Yeah, he is. And by the way, one other thing I wanted to note about the executive order, as I mentioned earlier, the payroll tax cut is not actually a tax cut. He is deferring payroll taxes until the beginning of next year. So if you're an employee who notices a payroll tax cut, just know that you're going to be expected to pay for that later down the line. But he said in his executive order that he might forgive those taxes if he gets reelected. So it's definitely a political move, 100%, and it doesn't actually offer the financial relief that ordinary Americans desperately need right now. With that said, though, I do want to go to one more clip featuring Larry Kudlow just stumbling and bumbling because he has no idea what the hell is going on.
I want to remind you of something that you said about this kind of move just this past week. Listen.
We got to fix and extend the unemployment issue right now. I don't think that can be done administratively. I think that requires an act of Congress.
So the whole question of whether there's the money for this to work is one, but what even you yourself said is whether it's even legal. Do you think it is?
Well, I'm not the lawyer, and I probably spoke out of turn there because I worked all week with our counsel's office, and they proved to me that we could use the Stafford Emergency Act and that we could repurpose funds to do that. So I probably shouldn't have said that. The president decided to take action on his own. Of course, I think he was right to do so.
I love when journalists do journalism. It's so fun to watch. That was incredible. That was incredible. That's what you do. You bring back the SOT, where Larry Kudlow says something completely counter to what the administration is currently doing. They're just completely full of it. But the fact of the matter is, it's unlikely that Democrats are going to take Trump to court over this executive order. The question is, will Congress get its act together and actually pass a robust new stimulus bill? And honestly, I lose hope every day for obvious reasons.
Yeah. So look, first you got the classic, I'm so sorry for being right earlier. Of course, Donald Trump is now correct in whatever he made up yesterday. I've been working with lawyers all week. Reminds me of that.
Leads.
Yeah, exactly. From the Big Lebowski. Yeah, leads. They got us working around the clock on it. So yeah, let me summarize for you guys. Donald Trump checked with 0 lawyers. He just ran out on his own. All right, number 2, I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that Donald Trump is saying at best you will get $400 in this semi-illegal move if I decide to give it to your state and your state has money. And remember though, that's not the $600 that people were getting before. And the people he's negotiating with in that regard is the Democrats want it to be higher. Mitch McConnell wants it to be 0. So he's also negotiating with the Republicans. So the one good thing here is he undercut Mitch McConnell, who's like, unemployed people are bums. We're giving them the wrong incentives. You're driving back to the mines, right? So when Trump goes, I don't know, let's give him $400, kind of. Well, now Mitch McConnell can't say anymore we should give him 0. So there is one benefit from this that we should be cognizant of. But again, it's only 2/3 of what it was before. So it's not like he's increased it, he's decreased it in a best case scenario. Finally, just a note on journalism. I love to see journalists doing what I think is relatively elementary, holding these people to account with their own words, et cetera. But I'm thrilled to see it. But will they continue to have that standard if Biden wins and there's a Biden administration. My guess is they will head right back into the cave and hold no one in that administration accountable. If they had plenty of opportunity to hold Biden accountable during the primary, and they absolutely positively refused to do so. So it's a nice little window into how journalism should be done that we get for a brief period of time. And then if and hopefully when Trump leaves, it'll probably disappear.
Yeah, I mean, look, over the weekend, CNN was showing off Biden's bicycle riding skills. So we know what to expect. So let's talk a little bit about the pathetic response coming from Democrats in response to this executive bill. So Congress has, in fact, failed to pass the next round of stimulus, providing financial relief to ordinary Americans who are suffering as a result of this pandemic. But if you're worried about, how they failed and, maybe because of Trump's executive order, you think they're going to get their act together. Democrats are going to fight. They're going to finally prove themselves as the opposition party. Not so fast, because while you might not be able to pay your bills, House leadership, Nancy Pelosi specifically, will pray for you. And that's what we got on not one, but two cable news shows over the weekend. Here she is.
I always like to focus on the children. In our bill, we have tens of billions of dollars to address the hunger needs in our country, which are there normally, but exacerbated during the pandemic. We have tens of billions of dollars. They have $250,000. So do they care? I have a prayer that I say, let's pray for those who are hungry. Let's pray harder for those who will not feed them.
Now, what was interesting in that interview was that she talks about hungry children, and she's not specifically talking about expanding SNAP benefits in order to help people during the pandemic. What she was referring to was the disagreement among Democrats and Republicans in Congress on the issue of funding states. Now, states are strapped for cash because people aren't working right now. People are unable to pay taxes. And so they've needed some financial relief from Congress, but Republicans refuse to do it. What's interesting about Nancy Pelosi specifically is when the CARES Act had passed, she was talking to Jake Tapper, for instance. That was one of the interviews I remember. And Jake Tapper asked, hey, what about the funding for states? Because the CARES Act doesn't appear to have any funding that the states desperately need. And Nancy Pelosi's response was something in the lines of, calm down, we'll get there. Right? Just totally dismissing the importance of funding the states. And I find it hilarious that in the context of this interview, all of a sudden she's like, we're not able to pass anything because we have been demanding that states get the funding that they needed. Okay, but you haven't. In fact, you told people to calm down when they were stressed out about it. Also, no one needs your prayers. Maybe some people like it. Maybe it's a nice cherry on top, but it doesn't go far enough, not even close enough to helping people with a real material need that they have right now. We have another video, but Cenk, jump in.
Yeah, so a couple of different issues here. So first off, look, the House's bill is infinitely better than the Republicans' requests on this in the Senate. So credit where credit is due. So they have the right legislation right now for this latest version of stimulating the economy and helping the American people. But optics matters when it comes to being able to pass that piece of legislation. And the way that you do that is by putting pressure on the other side. And her optics just suck. So when you listen to the Washington media, they gaslight you all the time. They tell you, literally almost every one of them tells you that Nancy Pelosi is a master legislator. Now, who dubbed her a master legislator? Pelosi. She called herself that. And everybody in the media repeats it with absolutely no evidence to that effect. None. Zero. She's terrible at this, okay? And you can see with your own eyes. So who are you going to trust, us or the mainstream media? Well, you just saw that interview. The first time I watched it, I was like, the kids, 250,000 versus 10 billion. What the hell is she talking about? She never clarified what she was talking about, and I was totally confused. and she's mumbling, stumbling, something about kids and money. Make a clear point and be aggressive. So say, look, we're trying to get $10 billion to the states. Why? Because we've got X number of hungry kids. They offer $250,000. That's not going to feed the kids. This is what Donald Trump has done throughout his career. Puts the kids in the cages. Now he's saying, no, I won't give money. Make a forceful case so it brings the Republicans to the table. It's not just for theatrics. It's because that is how you negotiate. But she goes out there and at the end, thoughts and prayers. Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, because she's operating, and you're going to notice this in the next video that we show. She's operating in, I don't know, 1990s politics, where you have like your talking points. All right, I'm going to pray. I'm going to do the prayer. I'm going to mention the hungry children, and Americans aren't paying attention. That'll work. But no, it doesn't work, and she's being clowned right now by level-headed people. I'm not talking about like DC establishment types. I'm talking about average Americans who are like, what is she talking about? I don't need her prayers. And here is another video from the weekend proving my point.
I understand that the president's executive action doesn't do all the things you want, but having no bill at all, not coming to any agreement, wasn't going to provide any of the things that you want either. You're known as a master negotiator, but didn't you mess this one up? Because you talk about all the things that the president's bill, let me just finish if I may, Speaker. Now, because there's no deal at all, cities and states won't get any money. There's no money for the post office. There's no money for hospitals. There's no money for state boards of election. You knew that the president was threatening to take this executive action. I understand that you weren't going to get everything you wanted and didn't get everything you wanted, but should you have cut a deal? And are you ready to go back into talks to try to come up with a fuller package?
Well, clearly you don't have an understanding of what is happening here, both in the weakness of the president's executive orders, which don't give the money enhanced benefit, but puts a complicated formula there, which will take a while, if at all, to accomplish, to put money in the pockets of the American people. What we have said, we're going to honor our heroes, state and local, healthcare workers, et cetera, first responders, teachers, and the rest. And that's part of our argument, is how much are they willing to do. Secondly, we're going to stop the, if I allowed you to finish, you allow me to finish. They're going to, let's open our economy by addressing the virus, which the president has ignored for months now, to do the right thing, scientifically based. And third, let's put money in the pockets of the American people. So what the president did doesn't even accomplish what he sets out to do in the categories he did.
So that was tough. That was tough to get through. And she did release a press release, giving us some details about what Democrats are going to do as the opposition party here to provide the benefits that people desperately need right now, dated August 9th, 2020, Jank. And it says, Dear Democratic colleague, on this Sunday morning, as we pray for the American people, I wanted to share a responsive prayer for justice. Pray for those who are hungry. Pray harder for those who will not feed them. Pray for those who struggle each week to pay their bills. Pray harder for the wealthy who do not care. Like the most powerful person in the House of Representatives. I pray for you, Nancy Pelosi. I pray for you.
Yeah. Okay, this is why AOC and Rashida Tlaib and other Just Democrats are lighting the country on fire, because they can actually form sentences and people understand them. They make clear cases. They make strong cases. What the hell was that? I'm sure soon she's going to start calling herself a master communicator, and every kiss-ass media person in Washington is going to bow down and go, oh, master communicator, Nancy Pelosi. Okay, no. That was ridiculous what she just did there. What the hell was point number 2? We want to reopen the economy by addressing the coronavirus. What is that? What are you talking about? What is that? What are you trying to say? No, she's terrible at this. Terrible. So, okay, look, we don't just do Monday morning quarterback. Constructive critique. What should she have said to Chris Wallace? Hey, Chris, do you acknowledge, based on your own framing of your own question, that the Republicans are holding the states hostage, the post office hostage, and every single person that you mentioned hostage by saying, I don't want to give them money. The Democrats are trying to give the American people the money they need for relief in the middle of a pandemic. Chris, be honest with your audience and tell them right now which is the party that is holding up the money. Don't tell me that, hey, while I'm fighting for more money for the American people, that I deserve blame because I couldn't break the Republicans enough. Chris, do you want me to break the Republicans? Because I would love to do that so we can get money to the American people. Chris, tell the audience who's denying the money, Trump and the Republicans. That's how you answer. Now, on the other hand, what was that? No one listening to that interview thought Democrats, they know what they're doing. Oh my God, the Democrats are on the side of the American people and the Republicans are ripping us off. No one thought that because she sucks at communicating.
We got to take a break, but when we come back, we have an update on the Georgia high school that attempted to censor students who were telling the truth about their crowded hallways and lack of social distancing. We'll be right back.
Are you a politician with a ridiculous point to make? Are you in need of a petulant, outdated way to make it? Then you'll need one of my signs. Hi, I'm Simon Simonson of Simonson Signs. We'll take the stupid, over-the-top, meaningless allegory you have and put it on foam core. So maybe someone will notice your grandstanding. Because this is C-SPAN, and anything that's not people milling around in front of a running vote count is almost considered moderately entertaining. The bar is low, just like our prices. We've got plenty of designs. We also brought you Mike Lee's Tauntauns. They're tons of fun. What does this have to do with the Green New Deal? About as much as this other visual aid he used of Reagan on a T-Rex. Or is that a velociraptor? Who cares? Who the cares? No one gives a... Call us now at Simonson Signs. We'll make your stupid point stupidly for money today.
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT Lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you've never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
300 million is a pretty good number. We were doing a press release on it, and I got all worked up. And I said, okay, well, that's the size of the U.S. population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world on the road to 6 billion. Although by the time we hit it, it'll probably be 7, maybe 8 billion.
Not a big deal. A couple of days ago on the TYT network, we passed 1 billion views.
What the hell?
What the hell?
That's a big freaking deal.
2 billion views.
What now?
Sorry.
What did we do? 2 billion?
2 billion.
They said it couldn't be done, but it was done.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking, one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts? Young Turks crosses 6 billion views. Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 10 billion views.
Damn.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited
right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
Hey, I'm Turks Jenkinana with you guys real quick. Let's go to our members. Ricky Pizicki writes in, watching Kudlow reminds me of one of Phil Hartman's absurd, bumbling characters, except it's real. Great call. Good callback to Phil Hartman. tyt.com/join to become a member. And let me read you just a couple of YouTube super chats as well. 3 Exoteric writes in, blackmailing voters. Wait, so he's giving every American $1,200 debt due beginning of next year, then offering to forgive it if we vote for him. WTF. That's an excellent point. America is a second world country, writes in, if Trump gets away with this, imagine all the good in the world Bernie Sanders could have done for the entire planet. He could have bypassed everyone. I was saying the same thing, but I'll tell you, of course, as you know, there's no way they would have let Bernie Sanders do executive orders. The minute he started doing ones that actually help American people, they would have been like, executive orders? Nobody's ever done them before. Bush didn't do them, Obama didn't do them, Trump didn't do them. They would have made up a whole new standard, okay? And everyone in the Washington media would have totally lied through their teeth about it. So just keep it real on how it would have gone down. Anyways, we got a lot more. Anna, what's next?
All right. Well, an update on a story that we talked about last week. The Georgia high school that made headlines last week for suspending 2 students who had posted viral images of crowded halls in their school has now actually decided to switch to online learning for obvious reasons. Take a look.
This weekend, the principal of that school told families that at least 6 students and 3 staff members have tested positive. And now, another 24 hours later, we're seeing this letter from the superintendent saying Monday and Tuesday, they're going all virtual. So the entire campus can be disinfected so that they can have time to consult with the public health department on what to do next.
So I want to remind you all of what that one of those viral images looked like. This was posted on Twitter. Hannah Waters is the 15-year-old student who shared that image because she was concerned about the lack of social distancing in her Georgia school. And she was right to be concerned about the lack of social distancing because people have contracted the virus. Now, after there was backlash, the school decided to reverse the suspensions, but it really doesn't matter at this point. No one's going to be in class today. No one was in class today because of the fact that they had to switch to online learning immediately because of the coronavirus outbreak, because they didn't social distance.
Yeah. So if the original order was, oh, yeah, you're suspended and are not allowed to come into school, bit of a win, right? So, look, guys, the school reopenings are a complicated issue. In places like New York and New Jersey, where the virus is way, way down, there is an argument to be made that you theoretically could go in. But the problem is some people are going to get it, especially in places where the numbers are still high, Georgia, Texas, Arizona, California, et cetera. And when they inevitably get it, like happened in this particular school, 6 people, 3, and more importantly, 3 staffers, because staffers are older and more likely to honestly pass away from it. So what are you going to do? Be like, oh, whatever, keep going? No, you're going to pull them back. Everybody's going to pull them back. Why? The parents are going to flip out, and let alone the teachers. Like, even if you crush the teachers, the parents are not going to send their kids to a school that is infected. It's just not going to happen. So this is trying to reopen the schools, as much as some people want to, it's just not realistic. And so the idea that, by the way, the kids can't get it, pushed by Donald Trump, is a complete and utter lie. The fact that it doesn't affect them as much is true, but not completely true, as you're about to see. We're going to give you more facts on that.
Right. So recently, we shared some new data showing that some children do suffer some pretty serious neurological issues if they contract the virus. But we're also learning that children do also contract the virus at a higher rate than what was previously thought. So new analysis shows that more than 97,000 children in the United States tested positive for coronavirus in the last 2 weeks of July alone. In those 2 weeks, there was a 40% increase in child cases across the states and cities that were studied. And also, at least 86 children have died since May, and that's according to a new report. Last week, a 7-year-old boy, for instance, with no pre-existing conditions, became the youngest coronavirus victim in Georgia. In Florida, 2 teenagers died earlier this month, bringing the state's death toll of minors to 7. And, you know, there's a lot of misinformation, I think, on purpose, on conservative news outlets like Fox News, which would explain why Ainsley Earhart seems to be so shocked at this recent data involving children. She talked to a health expert about it, and let's just take a quick look at that exchange.
We're all worried about sending our kids back to school. What is that going to look like for our country and for our elderly grandparents and things like that? 97,000 kids have tested positive. That was such a shock to me because I had heard kids really don't get it. If they do, they're all going to be okay. Do you know any details about that?
So the health expert was actually great. So all her answers were right. But the best part about that video, which is what we showed you, is just how like shocked Ainsley Earhart is, right? Because she genuinely seemed shocked by this. She genuinely thought like, no, everything's totally fine with kids. I believe the president. They're not spreading this virus. It's totally safe to reopen the schools. But no, you know, your favorite president is lying to you and doesn't actually care about your well-being or the well-being of your children.
Now, look, Trump's followers are as stupid as you thought they were. Fox News hosts are as stupid as you thought they were. Trump said that kids are almost definitely immune from this. No, they're not. That's not remotely true. But idiots like Ainsley Earhart are like, well, if Trump said it, it must be true. All right, let's throw our kids right into it, right? No, kids can get it from day one. That has been crystal clear. They are not at all immune from it. They could definitely get it. But it is also true that it does not affect them as severely as older people. So give context to the 86 kids who died. Some of them have pre-existing conditions. It is really depressing and alarming to see that some of them did not have pre-existing conditions. Now, having said that, 86 is a very small number in a country of 330 million people. So any kid who dies is a tragedy beyond comprehension, okay? But I'm giving you the full context. At the same time, this idea that they're pushing out there, what's the big deal? Let's just reopen the schools. It's wrong on several counts. Like I said, they can get it, but more importantly, once they get it, even if you think 86 is a low number of deaths for kids, obviously they could pass it on to their parents, their grandparents, to the teachers. That's what we've always been worried about. But the Ainsley Earharts of the world, like, oh my God, I didn't know they could get it. Is it true that they could pass it on? Yes, of course it's true. And that's what we've been worried about from day one.
Yeah, and you know, so the United States, in terms of the transmission of this virus, is the worst country. Coming in at number 2 is Brazil. And some new data says that the United States topped 5 million reported infections over the weekend. And at least 162,938 people have died since the start of the pandemic, more than any other country in the world. And I want to note that, unfortunately, as high as those numbers are, it is likely an underestimate because there are some states that are fudging with the numbers, that aren't reporting things accurately, and it's something to keep in mind. You know, if you're alarmed at these numbers, you should be, but even more unfortunate is these numbers are an underestimate of where this country is with the virus. All right, our post-game show is next. Ben Shapiro recites rap lyrics. That's a lot of fun. tyt.com/join to become a member, and we'll see you soon.
Here at TYT, we are now going quadruple green. What do I mean by that? If you sign up for an aspiration account, they're going to plant 10 trees for you. Boom, that's green number one. Second of all, they're fossil fuel free, so you don't put any of your money in that nonsense. Boom, that's green number two. But now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, another sweepstakes. And now you could win a Zoom e-scooter for free if you sign up at Aspiration through the end of August. It saves money on gas and parking. You can go up to 60 miles per hour. It's got a smart alarm. It's got a phone charger in there. It's got everything you need. It's actually, especially if you live in a city, it's perfect. Now you can get a free one if you go to tyt.com/greensummer and sign up for an aspiration account. So you're wondering, Jake, what's the fourth green? Well, you're saving money on aspiration, including on socially conscious spending, and you're saving money on the scooter. Fourth green, tyt.com/greensummer.
Our generation actually has a voice to say who we want.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the president of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
Get out there and
take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm gonna vote because I want this country to be different.
I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl.
Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're going to be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
Like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong.
We start a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited?
Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody! Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in, and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
All right, back on the Young Turks post game. I did promise you some Yosemite stories. I'll save most of them for the for old school, which you'll get tomorrow. But I will tell you one. we went on a little bit of we went on a great hike on the Mist Trail, if you've ever been at Yosemite. Ojeda sent me a video, by the way. He texted me a video of him saying like, Yosemite. It's Yosemite, you dumbass. When Ojeda sends me videos. Anyway, so we did that hike, and then there's a part that is not on the trail, and you can do, but most people don't. We get closer to Vernon Fall, and we did that part. And I was like, I scraped my shin. I cut it up pretty bad. I'm like, what are we doing this for? I'm not a guy who's into bouldering, okay? And then we get close to the fall, and you get the mist from the fall. I'm like, okay, fine. I could have done without the mist. And then you see this amazing swirling rainbow at the end of the fall, because the way that the water is hitting it, it's creating waves of rainbows that are both waves and swirling. And I was like, oh, this is why people come here. That's awesome. And my friends,
were you
like,
high?
No, are you kidding me? If I did that high, okay, I wouldn't have made it back. It was like you slip and you're gone, right? So
Okay. No, but I'm saying like once you get to the destination, it's like a little treat. And then you like really take it in differently. But I hear you. Bad idea.
Anna, I look, there's two things. I would have loved to have done edibles and watched that rainbow all day long. Number one, it's on a boulder, and we already stood on it too long. There's some people that are coming behind. Okay. Number two, if you take the edible, it's going to take an hour to kick in. So, like you'll already be pretty messed up by the time you get to the treacherous rocks, right? And then you got to drive back an hour and a half. So there's no way I'm doing edibles at the park. Like, and I was thinking too, like, how do I do this? Can I Uber into the park? But no, there's just no way. And my friend's like, dude, you're really into rainbows. I was like, yeah, it's a swirling, wavy rainbow. It looks amazing that no one else can see unless you're on top of this one boulder. Of course. So I highly recommend Yosemite. In fact, I'll give you a quick tip. During coronavirus, it's a lot less crowded, and it's actually the perfect time to go because everybody's socially distanced. There's not that many people there. You wear your mask when you're on the trail because there's other people. But a lot of times there's nobody on the trail because of coronavirus. There's very little people there. So we had like giant sections of forest all to ourselves. So I'm just keeping it real. Yosemite is as good as promised. It delivers. All right. Now on other fun stories from today.
Well, we start off with some breaking news, and it's not a fun story, but we do have fun stories later. So here's the breaking news one. Someone has been shot outside of the White House. This is a breaking news story that is developing pretty quickly. But here's what we know so far. Donald Trump was in the middle of giving a press briefing, and all of a sudden, a Secret Service agent whispers something in his ear, and he's taken off stage, and everyone's wondering what's going on. Pretty soon after that, we learned that there was some sort of shooting that took place outside of the White House. And it turns out that there was an individual who posed a threat. We don't know too many details on who this person was or whether or not they were actually targeting Donald Trump. But what we do know is that this person was shot by a Secret Service agent. We don't know about the condition of this person. So again, this story is still developing. But after leaving, Donald Trump then returned and spoke to the press. He said in regard to the shooting, it was outside of the White House. Somebody was taken to the hospital. It was the suspect who was shot. I don't believe anything was breached, he said, referring to the heavy fencing and armed security around the White House grounds. He also told reporters, quote, "It's unfortunate that this is the world, but the world has always been a dangerous place." I mean, gun violence is a big problem in the country. The only thing is most average Americans don't have Secret Service to protect you if someone poses a threat with a gun. But I digress. Law enforcement officials are on the scene, the Secret Service tweeted, and that's what we know so far. When Trump was taken away from the stage, apparently they took him to the Oval Office for safety.
Yeah, or maybe to the bunker, but we don't know that yet. All right, look, some things, other things we know. Apparently, so the White House on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So the shooting apparently was on 17th Street, so about a block away. As far as we know, the guy isn't dead, so that's why they took him to the hospital. At least not yet, in the early reports. And when the president left the room, the White House press briefing room was then locked down. It was locked, and no one could leave. So, and those are all the correct things to do. Putting aside kidding about Bunker Boy, they should get the president to safety, no matter who he is, if they believe there was any type of attack that was being planned, because you never know if it's one person or a number of people. So it appears at first blush, we have no idea if the shooting was justified yet. We don't know any of those facts. But at first blush, in terms of the procedure done within the White House, it looks like it was perfectly normal. The Secret Service should bring the president to safety. They should lock down the briefing room. And then apparently, fairly quickly, they found out that there was no further threat, and then he comes back. So all of that seems to have worked as it should.
All right. Well, that's what we know about the story so far. We'll fill you guys in later as we learn more details. But for now, before we get to serious stories, let's actually blow off some steam and have a little bit of fun. Ben Shapiro and rap lyrics. So Ben Shapiro is the guy who wrote a book on porn and how porn is bad, very naughty, it should be banned. But he is also targeting Cardi B and her latest music video, WAP, which stands for Wet Ass P-Word. If you want the edited version, you know, the PC version of it, it's wet and gushy. That's what's used in the music video for the non-explicit version. But nonetheless, Ben Shapiro is very, very disturbed by the lyrics of this song. Very disturbed. Very. So let's hear him recite the actual lyrics from the song.
Here are some of the lyrics. You ready? Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. Hold up. I said certified freak 7 days a week. Wet ass P-word. Make that pull-out game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P-word. P-word is female genitalia. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P-word. Give me everything you got for this wet ass P-word. Beat it up, N-word. Catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P-word right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top, I want to ride. I do a kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This P-word is wet, come take a dive. It continues along these lines. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar.
I mean, you know he loves it. You know he loves it. He loves it. He's like, well, I forget the first lyric, but the one that he repeated over and over again. But he was just so into it. You know he's into it. The guy who writes an anti-porn book is consuming a lot of porn. Let's just keep it real.
Yeah, there's okay, guys who say, "Oh, I've never watched porn," watch more porn than the rest of the school combined. That's my sense of it. Okay, and a guy who writes a book about not watching porn, oh my God, it's broken every record in the book. And so the number of times he watched that video has got to be in the dozens. Oh no, honey, I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes on the wet ass P-word that they are talking about. Oh, what was that lyrics again? I think I've got to rewind and watch it again alone. Okay. Anyway, look, this other thing that he's doing is this old trick that Henny does every year. Whenever given an opportunity, they'll show spring break pictures and go, "Can you believe the debauchery that goes on here? Show more bikinis, okay?" And it's not just for their own pleasure, but it's for their audience's pleasure, right? So they live vicariously through people who are not dorks, and so that's part of the reason why they do this. But on a philosophical and political level, I thought Ben Shapiro was a freedom of speech advocate, I thought he thought like freedom of speech is awesome. So, Ben, make a counter argument. Instead of saying they shouldn't say this, why don't you say the argument for dry ass P words and see how that turns out for you? I mean, speech versus speech, right? I mean, so look, by the way, this is all
dry ass pervs like Ben Shapiro. We have one more video though. Like, let's just go to one more video of him reciting the lyrics.
And then I want to make it serious.
Never gonna F him for a thing. He already made his mind up before he came. Now get your boots and your coat for this wet ass P word. Pay my tuition just to kiss me on this wet ass P. Right. So this is, guys, this is what feminists fought for. This is what the feminist movement was all about. It's not. It's not really about, women being treated as independent, full, rounded human beings. It's about wet ass P word. And if you say anything differently, it's because you're a misogynist, you see. It gets really, really vulgar.
Okay, Jane, let me tell you what the real problem is here. The real problem here is that this is a song that might put some ideas in my own wife's head about what a man should do to actually pleasure a woman. And that's the problem. I don't want to have to be critiqued against men who actually know how to protect, to make a woman come, you see. Like he's just so pathetic. Who cares? Look, that music video came out, I think August 7th. And I saw, like, people were talking about it on Twitter, and I'm not offended by it at all. But, like, to be honest, I'm not really interested in watching a music video with, like, Kylie Kardashian or whatever her name. Like, it's just not my thing. But, like, I don't care. Like, I don't spend time whining about it. There's content out there that I love. There's content out there that doesn't really interest me. There's content out there that I absolutely hate. But, like, I don't dedicate my, like, career to calling it out. And honestly, what is he trying to get done here? Is he trying to get videos like this banned? Because that is going against everything that he claims to represent when it comes to free speech and freedom of expression.
Yeah.
It's okay. Maybe just take the advice, Ben. Take the advice. Make your wife happy.
Okay, so look, two serious points. One of the things he's trying to do is deride feminists. But as usual, he's misdirecting. And I'm being kind to him because otherwise he's an idiot. So there's two different factors here. One is feminists want to be able to say whatever they want, and that would fit under this video, right? Like before, they certainly wouldn't have been allowed to say this, right? And now they have the freedom to actually act on their own sexuality and to demand and receive pleasure. Yeah, that is part of what they fought for. And so I know that bothers you, and you want them to be simply subservient. But you know, we all know it's entertainment. It's like saying, "Oh no, I guess now Al Pacino thinks that it's great to bury your face in cocaine and to meet his little friend." It's a movie. It's a movie. Okay, this is a rap song. No, they're not actually prostitutes. It's in some ways an allegory. It's entertainment, you moron. Okay, anyway, he partly knows.
And also, people are dying right now. People are they're gonna lose their homes. People are suffering right now, and he's complaining about a Cardi B music video. Are you serious? Like, he thinks that that's far more he doesn't find what this country does to working people vulgar or disgusting. He loves that. He celebrates the pain and suffering of Americans every single day. That's what his whole career is dedicated to. But this is what gets him angry? This music video? Really?
Yeah. So last thing on feminism, and then I'm going to tell you why he is so exercised by this. Look, thinking people can distinguish between, hey, that's a rapper who's doing a fun, entertaining video, and hey, that's Madeleine Albright, who's the Secretary of State. You don't have to conflate the two. You don't have to say, like, well, if these rappers are doing this, then they must want all women to be treated that way. No! It depends on the context. Okay? And he knows that his audience is not bright enough to understand that. And so, now the main thing here, though, is It's the culture wars. And so he genuinely thinks this is outrageous. This is outrageous. Can you believe they've used the P word and now it's all of a sudden wet and gushy? It doesn't make any sense, okay? We have lost the culture wars. But the thing is, Ben, you're right. You did lose the culture wars. Now people have something that you guys claim to cherish and don't actually want people to have at all. It's called freedom. And if you're free, you can do whatever you want. You can do anything you want sexually. Oh, no, we must limit it. The Judeo-Christian heritage says that the sky god is watching, and we are going to offend his beard if we do it in that position or this position, or if we're, level 7 on wetness as opposed to a level 3. And that's the thing. That's the thing, that they genuinely believe that. They want to control our lives. As long as it's consensual, we can do anything we want, and they hate that because they are fundamentally opposed to freedom. No, you must follow my religion. And so that was like the greatest moment was like when he was on with Dave Rubin. And Dave's like, look, you'd bake me a cake, wouldn't you? And he's like, no, because my religion says you suck and I hate you. And I'll say it to your face. And of course, Dave Rubin being who he is, yes, sir, of course, sir. Okay, no cake. I don't need the cake. I don't need it. Right? So the reality is they have lost and we have won. Yes, we will have freedom in this country, including sexual freedom. And if you don't like it, hashtag suck it.
Inappropriate, Cenk. I mean, did you hear what Cenk said? He said, suck it. He said, suck it. That is inappropriate. He is making us think about oral sex. It is wrong. All right, let's talk about other news, actual important news that's going on.
It says only do missionary position. That is why I only do that, okay? And you should consult my sky god before you have any kind of sexual freedom.
Oh, man. All right, well, we got to change gears because the next two stories are serious, and I think it's important to talk about them. So, 2 African-American teenagers who were being assaulted by a homeless man with a knife got a little bit of help from a caller, a manager at a Buffalo Wild Wings, who called the cops, hoping the cops would show up to assist these teenagers. Unfortunately, and I think for a lot of people expectedly, quite the opposite happened. Take a look.
Guys, it's not them. Get away from me. It's the other guy. It's the other guy. It's the other guy. Put your guns down. They're kids. They weren't kids. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Guys, do not. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. Yo, they got their friend. Put your hands up. Okay, shh. I'm the manager here at Buffalo Wild Wings. They don't care because they black. They don't care because they black. They don't care because they black. I'm the one that called you. They didn't do nothing at all. Back up. I'm the one that called you. It was not them. They didn't do nothing wrong. They put it. Sir, can I please talk to you for a minute? Can I talk to someone? They didn't call the. We can tell you, there's no reason. They're kids, bro. Back up. Hey, they're just kids. Guys, back up. We're not doing nothing. We're right here. We're not doing nothing. We're right here. We're right here. They didn't even do nothing. Back up. You need to let them go. That guy is coming away with a knife. I understand. This is some bullshit, man. This is bullshit. They didn't even do nothing.
Honestly, watching that, you're just terrified that someone's going to get shot, someone's going to get killed. Luckily, that didn't happen. This took place in Santa Clarita by the, Santa Clarita Valley Police, who are part of the Los Angeles Police Department. And the mother of one of the teens, Tammy Collins, shared her perspective on social media, writing, "I wanted to share what happened to my son yesterday in Santa Clarita Valley when he was with a couple of friends sitting at a bus stop headed home. He was attacked by a gentleman, homeless guy, who approached them and first asked them if they had any crack, then tried to take their things." So at that point, unfortunately, the confrontation escalated. That was when this homeless man allegedly took out a knife, and the teens had skateboards, which they were using to fend the homeless guy off. Now, other people saw what was going on. They called the cops. One of the people was a manager at Buffalo Wild Wings who accurately depicted the teenagers as the victims here. But apparently other people who had called thought that the teenagers were attacking the homeless guy. Nonetheless, the cops show up and you saw what happened. They have their guns drawn on these teenagers. What's beyond frustrating as someone who's watching that video, and I'm sure beyond frustrating for people who were there, bystanders are trying to explain to the cops, no, those are the they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything wrong. Please stop pointing your guns at them. This is inappropriate. This is wrong. And they're just not listening. They're not listening. And, Tammy Collins, again, the mother, also says one caller called the police and reported 2 black guys are attacking a homeless guy. This is how the police responded. This is something my son and his friends will never forget. So what did we hear from the sheriff's department? Well, the LA County Sheriff's Department told TMZ the 911 call came in as an assault with a deadly weapon, specifically 2 adult males, they're teenagers, hitting another man with a skateboard. The kids were detained, and after deputies spoke with them and witnesses, they were released with no arrests. We saw what that scene looked like. They're trying to make it seem like it wasn't a big deal. I mean, they had one of the teenagers on his knees with guns drawn. The department doesn't know what happened to the homeless man. So there's a guy out on the loose with a weapon, obviously threatening people. And all of the attention by these cops was placed on 2 black teenagers.
Okay, so first of all, to be fair to the police department, I get it. You got conflicting reports. One said the homeless guy attacked the kids. The other one said the kids hit the homeless guy. But when you show up to the scene, and by the way, they're the sheriff's department, it turns out, and witnesses are telling you they're the victims, not the people who did it. And the person who called in comes up, says, I'm the manager at Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm the one who called it in. They're the victims. Nope, cops won't listen. So what does it show you? First of all, you see black kids, they immediately pull their weapons. Pull their weapons! Because this is what we're talking about, guys. Racial bias is in our heads. It's in our heads. Denying it is insanity. If they saw the same age kids who were white or Asian, do you think they automatically pull their weapons? Maybe, but I doubt it. They see black kids and they're like, oh my God, dangerous. Everybody pull all your weapons, the rifles, the guns, everything else, and point it at these kids. Then, okay, that's your initial reaction. Then people come and listen to you. Now we go into the training. No, never listen to anyone. I don't care who called it in. I don't care who's right or wrong. No, I have my weapons drawn and you will respect my authority. Oh, for God's sake. Listen for a second. Listen. No, I was told not to listen. I have to assert my authority. I'm a cop, and I will tell you what to do. Hey, for God's sake, they called for help. They didn't call to point your weapons at their kids' heads, okay? Nope, won't listen. And now, at the end of all that, the guy got away because they refused to listen to anyone because they were too busy asserting how awesome and tough they are and how worthy of respect they are. And now let's talk about deadly weapon. Come on, guys. A skateboard, you're all going to be murdered by the skateboard of the teenager, even in the scenario where you think they were the assailants? Nah, you wanted to pull the gun. You couldn't wait to pull the gun. And what do they tell you in your training? Never, ever take any risk with your life. The life of the citizens are irrelevant. You accidentally shoot a kid. Who cares? He had a deadly weapon, deadly weapon. By the way, when cops run over protesters in their cars, not a deadly weapon. But when a kid has a skateboard, deadly weapon, right? So we're so tired of their hypocrisy. And let me tell you something about my personal experience in that area, because I ran for Congress there. None of the politicians will ever do anything. Their number one mode of operation, not just for Republicans, but for Democrats in that district, is to kiss the cops' ass. Oh my God, Santa Clara cops are awesome, awesome, great. Sheriff's Department is awesome. Oh, did you know in this district there's a lot of cops in Simi Valley? Cops, 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 cops. So there will be no accountability. None, 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 none. Every politician will go and bow down to the cops, and they will have no repercussions at all for putting those kids' lives in danger.
Yeah, look, I just, I just want to remind everyone that this is exactly the reason why there's a huge portion of this country who believes in defunding the police. Because if your response to that is, well, who's going to keep us safe? Just understand that there are people in this country, a huge, significant portion of this country, that has not been protected by the cops. Imagine being a victim, being assaulted, being fearful of your life, and knowing that it's actually going to make the situation worse if you call the cops. That's why people want to defund the police. And maybe, hey, let's divert some of that money to social services so we can at least alleviate some of this homelessness. You get it? You know, it's not that hard to understand unless you're so unwilling to step out of your own bubble and see what policing is like for others. Some people do not get protected by police, and I think this was a perfect example of that.
Okay, well, one last thing. We train our cops to be the worst of us, not the best of us. If some kids had hit someone I loved with a skateboard, in this case it was an adult, so let's say a cousin of mine, an uncle of mine, okay, someone I really care about, and they'd hit him with a skateboard. If I thought that was the fact pattern, that is not what happened here. But if I thought accidentally that was the fact pattern, would I pull a gun on that kid? Under no circumstances would I do that. I'd be furious at the kid, and I might. They're teenagers. I'd certainly try to maybe make sure they don't hit him again with a skateboard. I might get in the middle. But no way would I put a rifle to their heads. No decent person would ever do that. But we train our cops to be indecent and to be the worst of us and to point weapons at kids and endanger their lives because, oh my God, I might get hurt by a skateboard. That is, by the way, you can tell, like, what, 100 feet away? I don't know how far away they were. That what, they're going to throw the skateboard and maybe give you a hangnail or something? Oh, I'm not going to take a risk with my life. Oh, it's a skateboard. Let's point weapons, point weapons, point weapons. Because we've been told you put down everything in your path. I'm sick of how we train cops. I'm absolutely sick of it. Defund the police. Start from scratch.
All right, one more story for you guys. Similar theme here. So, you guys ready? Video has emerged from 2018 showing cops in Key West handcuffing an 8-year-old boy. The situation was sparked by the boy refusing to sit properly in his cafeteria bench, so you know it's serious. So again, this incident happened in December of 2018, but it's making news now because the video has somehow been leaked. Let's take a look.
Right here.
All right, man. I'm Officer Wade. So you know where you're going?
Okay.
To jail.
You're going into jail. So you need to stand up and put your hands behind your back.
Well, first what I want you to do is put your hands right here. All right?
You can try, but
I don't think so either.
And you can justify it.
All right, put your hands behind your back.
Never mind, I'll text you later.
Yeah, you're right.
Barely.
No.
Not worth it, just...
Yeah.
Alright, your hands are too small.
Okay. Keep your hands in front of you like this. Okay? When he takes it off. You understand this is very serious, okay? And I hate that you put me in this position that I have to do this. Okay? Alright? The thing about it is you made a mistake. Now it's time to learn from it and grow from it, right? Not repeat the same mistake again.
No, except the cops didn't have to do it, but they chose to. So the Miami Herald reports that according to the arrest report from the December 14th, 2018 case, police were called to his school, Gerald Adams Elementary, after he punched a teacher in the chest. Officers arrested the child, who was not named in the report because of his age, on a felony battery charge. He was taken to juvenile detention. So he wasn't sitting properly on the cafeteria bench. The teacher got frustrated and angry with him. So she asked him to come with her probably to go, I don't know where to go, probably to the principal's office or something. And in the process of that happening, the kid allegedly, an 8-year-old who's 64 pounds, punched the teacher. And so then he gets sent to they tried to handcuff him, but they couldn't handcuff him because he's so tiny that the handcuffs wouldn't fit. They charged him. He's 8. He's 8. My 4-year-old niece smacked me the other day because she's a kid. Okay, we're born as these uncivilized little animals, right? We're supposed to grow and mature and learn as we go, not immediately get criminalized the second we do something wrong as children. This is so disgusting.
Our whole society is over militarized, over policed. So it's not just the cops in this case. Look, if you're a teacher, this kid won't listen to you and you get frustrated. I get it. And then he hits you and you get super frustrated. I get it. And it's a tough job. Don't call the cops. That's nuts. When the cops come, they're going to do cop things, like try to put handcuffs on an 8-year-old, and they're going to send him to juvie, which they did. He's 8. He's 8. My kids are around that age. I mean, I've had nephews, etc. Look, 8-year-olds sometimes act out. Sometimes they push or shove or punch, etc. If you've ever been punched by an 8-year-old, who cares? For God's sake, it's not a real punch. It's not a felony battery, okay? It's not a good thing. You should call their parents in, and you should do the normal things you do in a school. But, I mean, is that kid going to have a record? Are we, what kind of insanity is this?
That's it.
Yeah.
Because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You tell an 8-year-old kid that he's no good, that he's a criminal. You put him in a juvenile detention center. You charge him with a felony. I mean, it's the worst possible way to handle this. And by the way, Cenk, I mean, it's not like the teacher had to do anything extreme to call the cops. They have a cop on campus. This is part of the problem. You have a cop on campus, you're going to use the cop for stupid reasons. And that's a perfect example.
If you have a hammer, everything looks like nails. So, and they've got hammers now on campuses. So they just go around. They would have arrested every single one of us when I was going to school. In elementary school, we used to play a game called Kill the Man with the Ball. Okay, somebody would hold onto the ball and they'd run around the yard and the whole school would pile onto them, rip the ball away, and then that kid would run and we'd all pile on top of him. And a lot of crazy things happened. Felony battery, arrest the entire elementary school and put them into prison camps. Well, this is insane, man. And so look, and one of the reports said that the kid has special needs. What are you doing? What are you doing? You don't do that to any kid, but let alone a kid who's got issues. And how traumatic is it for that? You did it. If they did it to my kids who were around that age, I know they would have been absolutely terrified. And so the problem in America is everything has to be dealt with extreme force. And so you bring cops in, they're going to try to handcuff 8-year-old kids and ruin their lives. Don't do it. But we've militarized everything, and we're now living under an occupation. And this is what that occupation looks like.
All right, that's what we got for you guys today.
All right. I was going to say, good to be back. Okay.
It's good to have you back, Cenk.
It's good to do the show. The Ben Shapiro story was fun. Man, the news is tough sometimes, or a lot of times. Let's just get to Biden, and then we'll have 4 years of boring nothingness. Well, then the progressives will rage, but it'll be different, and it'll hopefully be positive change. We'll cause some good trouble, as John Lewis would say. But for now, we just got to hold on. The election's less than 3 months away.
Yep.
So let's hang in there. Okay? Much love, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.